Chapter 1279, Saint Battle. Chapter 1279, Saint Battle. Proofreader, Papatonks. Everyone looked at Juofan's grin with gaping mouths. Many of them started laughing and mocking his outrageous claim. Juofan was the first in ages to challenge the sacred mountains. He Haodong enjoyed deriding him. "Whose fool are you? Are you so slow in the head to spout such nonsense? I am the Luo clan steward, Juofan." "You're that Juofan?" He Haodong was silent, then shouted. "You're the guy close to Qingchun? Did you have something to do with the rescue?" "Humph, it doesn't matter, since it has nothing to do with you." Juofan smirked, flying with Luo Yunhai on his back. "You don't need to know where you're going." They turned to Juofan with lost gazes. He's not even in the profound heaven stage, yet he can fly. He's full of tricks. One elder roared and flew after him. He shone golden, and a giant with 12 shields appeared around him. He was a mid-saint. "You're boasting and looking for trouble on the 6th sacred mountain. For that you will die here. You won't escape. We'll see soon enough who among us will die." "Humph, as you wish," Juofan quipped, letting black energy flood the heavens, and taking the form of a black giant. Violent and powerful, they all gasped. "He's a saint? How? How could anyone from the 8 Emperors' lands have the arts to reach the saint stage?" Reaching a higher stage needed more than just talent and perception. A cultivation method was paramount, needing a heaven-ranked method to become a saint, but all such cultivation methods were long since monopolized by the sacred mountains. For a saint to appear outside of the sacred mountains was a slim chance. Only through incredible talent or perception in creating their own heaven-ranked cultivation method, the 7 sacred mountains would pursue anyone that was such a man to join them, while the ones that refused just wandered about with few rogue saints about. They were no threat, and they weren't stupid enough to attack the 7 sacred mountains. Maintaining balance of the sacred domain, it was unthinkable how someone had the nerve to use 3 of the sacred mountain's disciples for pawns, and then come take someone from their mountain. What was more, it was done by Juofan, whom they all knew to be weak. Everyone was filled with bloodlust. Instead of just minding his own business, he kept thwarting the sacred mountain's plans. "He had to die," he Haodong roared. "Elder Lu, kill him." "Yes, Mountain Lord." Elder Lu grinned in confidence. It was obvious to anyone that one was mid and the other was an early saint. He would win for sure. "Soaring demonic dragon." Juofan sneered, and the huge dragon on the giant's chest shot out of it. Boom. A dreadful explosion echoed that shook the skies. Elder Lu had his guard down, taking Juofan for easy pickings, and the black dragon made a half-a-mile large hole in the elder's giant. The 12 shields crumbled to dust. Elder Lu coughed blood as his sacred body collapsed. Falling to the ground, Elder Lu. The others cried out, while their minds abuzz from what they saw. Elder Lu is stronger and trained in a high cultivation method on the sacred mountains. How did he lose so fast? Even if the punk has the aptitude to make a cultivation method to reach the saint stage, it can't match with ours, polished over millions of years. A draconic roar echoed, and the black dragon turned on Elder Lu. Swallowing him whole, the dragon returned to Juofan's sacred body's chest. The head looked violent. As its maw spilled black energy, the others felt a chill down their spines. What a savage sacred body. He Haodong frowned and flew up. Lightning crackled, and a Vajra body with 12 great swords on its back appeared around him. Whoosh. He Haodong took 2 of the thunder blades and hacked at Juofan. "Oh, Mountain Lord is going ahead. Is it to save face?" But then his giant sported another black dragon head, while Juofan turned serious for once. "Humph, you're peak saint after all, and have some skill. Cut the crap and die." He Haodong went on the offensive, his 2 thunder blades sending thousands of sword waves at Juofan. Juofan had his sacred body dance through the strikes, suddenly pausing when the attack stopped. Dozens of lashes appeared on his sacred body. His scales broke, turning to dust. Juofan shook, and blood leaked from his mouth. Luo Yunhai cried, "Big brother Juo, are you all right? Mountain Lord is formidable." The crowd cheered, seeing Juofan being pushed back. There's nothing amazing about getting a couple dozen hits in from thousands. This guy is good. He Haodong saw the truth, and his expression grew grave. He was a peak saint while the other was a fresh one. It should be an easy job killing him. But the way he avoided most of his attacks showed he lost in that exchange. If they were of equal cultivation, then he himself would die in one hit. This kid isn't normal. That's why Elder Lu suffered. He Haodong's thunderblades flashed through the air as he went for Zhuo Fan, blocking any chance at dodging. Luo Yunhai cried, "Big brother, Mountain Lord, kill him." Those below cheered. Zhuo Fan squinted and shouted, "Come, my sword." "Yes, father." Whoosh! The ignored sword child flew in the sky, turning into a black blade and entering Zhuo Fan's hand. He Haodong's violent sword hacked at Zhuo Fan. Boom! With a sudden thunderclap, a black glow shone, and the sword vanished. Everyone looked agape, with He Haodong staggering back 2 steps as the 2 thunderblades in his hands crumbled. He Haodong coughed blood and shuddered. He watched as Zhuo Fan's giant held a black longsword. The same one his real body was holding. Both of them had black flames licking its blade, eerie and sinister. Chapter 1280, Crushing a Sacred Mountain. Chapter 1280, Crushing a Sacred Mountain. Proofreader, Papatonks. He Haodong's face shook, his eyes grew wide. He then turned grave as he got his arm behind him. All that mattered now was winning. Regardless of what the enemy came up with, He Haodong charged again, unleashing another sword image, to which Zhuo Fan merely waved his black sword crack. The 2 new thunderblades crumbled to nothing. Everyone gasped, gawking at Zhuo Fan in disbelief. What sword is that to be so deadly? The 12 thunderblades on Mountain Lord He's back were a part of his sacred body, made of lightning. Like the 12th heaven, purple lightning, tough beyond belief, and at the 6th grade sacred weapon level. How could they just break? He Haodong was just as baffled regardless of these issues. He chose to still go through with it. He had come out alone, and now he had to finish off Zhuo Fan to preserve his dignity as the big boss on a mountain. Zhuo Fan killed Elder Lu, and he came out to win back the loss and get revenge. Falling back now would only bring him shame. He Haodong took a deep breath and roared, "Heaven-breaking swords!" Ding! The remaining 8 thunderblades flew from his back and soared into the sky, appearing like flashes of lightning. Black holes cracked in the sky from their incredible power, forming a net and threatening to break the fabric of space. The 8 thunderblades multiplied into a thunderstorm, ready to rain havoc on the world. Below, the sheer amount struck fear in all beings. The audience cheered. Mountain Lord, He's supreme martial art is out. It drove terror into the hearts of many 11th level dragon saints in the past Great War. Now it was used on some poor, lonely bastard who would ever have the same honor of facing Mountain Lord He's ultimate skill alone. Mountain Lord He hasn't used it in ages, and now the crowd was excited to see it again. All smirked at Zhuo Fan's plight. Writing him off, Humph, it's all over for you. Even with your Harblade, there's nothing you can do against a flood of sword waves. Your sacred body will be crushed, and death will surely follow. Ha ha ha. There will be nothing left of you to bury. You should be honored to die at the same move that defeated many dragons, Humph. All the saints took it as Zhuo Fan's doom, while Luo Yunhai looked on with worry. Zhuo Fan just smiled and grinned. Sword Child, want to give it a try? Dad, it's merely a concept, and I haven't understood it. It's too risky against so many enemies. Sword Child sighed. Zhuo Fan didn't care. It's because there's so many that makes it a good practice run. Where else am I supposed to test it? I'll let the fight drag out, just so I could train. All right, try it then. Divine Eye of the Void and the apocalyptic sword together. The sword shook and black energy seeped out. Kill. He Haodong signaled, and the thunderblades fell like a torrent of heavy rain, right on Zhuo Fan's head. The immense pressure had the black energy on Zhuo Fan's giant tremble. All looked on with sneers. Zhuo Fan was confident as he raised the demonic sword hum. Zhuo Fan and the giant's right eye shone in 9 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void, 9th stage. Void Eater. Apocalyptic sword art. Obliterate. Zhuo Fan and Sword Child shouted at the same time, and the giant spun, cutting with the great sword all around the space, warped around it under the eerie power. Spreading out farther and farther away, the incoming deadly thunderblades warped as well, with the space around them vanishing into nothing. Not a single thunderblade could ever get within 10 meters of Zhuo Fan, Vanishing into thin air, he howled and guffawed. What the hell? The others were stumped as well. Where the lightning swords? Where did they go? Ah! The others were overwhelmed with shock. Where's Mountain Lord he? Did he die? The guy used one creepy art. What on earth did it do? Even Luo Yinhai on Zhuo Fan's back was baffled. Big brother ha ha ha. It's the first trial run, so of course you don't know. Zhuo Fan explained. After becoming a saint, my divine Eye of the Void reached the 9th stage, Void Eater, allowing it to devour all space in my domain. Sword Child used his strongest apocalyptic sword art in correlation with my attack to form an apocalyptic void and annihilate all in my domain before they even notice. As the devouring spreads out, any caught within it will vanish before they know it. Luo Yinhai gasped. Then you can kill anyone, even those caught off guard, before they even know it. Not quite. This skill uses apocalyptic sword art, and if the other has higher swordsmanship, then I can't touch him. There's someone who can block your sword when a peak saint couldn't? Luo Yinhai started Zhuo Fan was grave. Of course, since S peak saint is nothing. I've always been afraid of the one equal to me. No, the one above me. Zhuo Fan felt a heavy weight on his shoulder, thinking how the enemy was 3 stages above in the divine Eye of the Void Whoosh. Zhuo Fan shuddered and the black giant vanished. Luo Yinhai asked, Big brother, he's spent. Let's get him and force him to give Mountain Lord he back. He must have used some trick to grab Mountain Lord he. The saints roared and hundreds charged with their power on display. Zhuo Fan wiped his brow and said to Luo Yinhai, I'm not used to the 9th stage, and it takes a lot out of me. Killing a peak saint and working in combination with Sword Child to unleash that attack left me empty. What do we do? Luo Yinhai glanced at the savage saints coming to kill them. Zhuo Fan smirked. Like I said, crush them. Chapter 1281. Overwhelming Shock. Chapter 1281. Overwhelming Shock. Proofreader, Papatonks. Crush them? How when there's so many? Luo Yinhai didn't understand. Zhuo Fan smirked. With this, Zhuo Fan took out a huge golden fireball. Its dreaded power surged around, forcing the many sacred bodies to halt in fear. What is that? Why does it feel so scary? A dragon breath pill. Zhuo Fan smiled at the familiar ball. Decimating Dragon Ancestor gave me 3 of these in mortal domain, each unleashing his full power. I wasted one for revenge, another against Heaven's Sealing CAO, and this is the last. I planned to save it when things got dire, especially against him, but I have no choice. Since these guys want to die so much, I'll oblige them. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan flicked the huge fireball on top of their heads, laughing. Here's a present for you. I, Zhuo Fan, am a man of my word. I said I'll crush you, and that's what I'll do, ha ha ha. We have to block it. The others felt the tremendous power of the dragon breath pill and shouted. Everyone used their best skills against it along with their sacred bodies. Despite the hundreds of saints using enough power to destroy the world, it was still not enough to even shake the fireball. It hardly even shrank under the fearful eyes of all. The golden fireball struck them. Boom! A huge explosion was unleashed, followed by a sudden heat wave. The decimating golden flame swallowed the 6th sacred mountain. The mighty saint army had no time to scream their last before they burned to ashes. Their tough bodies were eroded and vanished, even faster than when Zhuo Fan handled He Haodong in seconds. The 6th sacred mountain was a raging sea of golden flames. The beautiful sceneries, the fancy pavilions, all were reduced to dust in just one strike. A great sacred mountain now disappeared from reality. Only the golden sea of flames was the sole proof of it ever existing, and of the horror that was unleashed to erase it. Luo Yunhai's face twitched as he gasped. He never got to see such an astonishing spectacle in his life. Big brother Zhuo, that's why you weren't scared. You had such a trick up your sleeve. A shame it was the last one. Zhuo Fan clicked his tongue. Next time I meet tough opposition, better keep my nose down. Then again, there probably aren't that many out there at my level. Haha. Luo Yunhai nodded. You killed the 6th sacred mountain lord. That means you can dominate anyone in the sacred domain in a duel. You're also the only one in the clan capable of fighting the sacred mountains. What do we do when the other mountains come knocking? It's for that reason that I used the precious dragon breath pill to crush the sixth sacred mountain. Joie Fan eased a breath. The worst thing about humans is their cowardly natures, the sacred mountains included. The stronger you are, the more afraid they'll be. If I had left it after saving you and Qingsheng, then all of the sacred mountains would have come for revenge. Since I killed those entitled pricks, the sacred mountains, who value reputation and dignity above all else, will definitely have come in force. Luo Yunhai was grave. Yes, the sacred domain is just like the mortal domain. The higher-ups or emperors are nothing but hypocrites. For their name, they'll never see reason nor honor. That's why I crushed the sixth sacred mountain, to give them a fright. They don't know my limit and won't rush to get me out of fear of suffering the same fate. We can drag it out for a year and a bit, wait on the dragon's report so that we may really have a fighting chance against the sacred mountains. Before that, bluffing is the way to go. Luo Yunhai smiled. Just like when the Luo clan got set up in Veiled Dragon Pavilion, thought we were something big when we had nothing. Yeah, the sacred mountains may believe that we still have dragon breath pills when in reality, we've already run out. Joie Fan smirked, and the two laughed. Luo Yunhai frowned. Mountain Lord, he said someone took Qingsheng. But who and to where? Joie Fan's eyes shone. If he came to the sacred mountains, he could have easily killed some girl. But now I don't know where to look for her. The expert had to be a top power in the sacred domain. Out of the 7 sacred mountains, that leaves dragon lands. But it doesn't look like they would move. Maybe there's some hidden power like us. Could be, but that would be even worse. Joie Fan sighed, leaving after giving the flames one last look. Let's go. I'll think about Qingsheng later. We now need to spread this news throughout the 8 emperors' lands. We'll grasp the people's support and become their leader. Once the dragons respond, we can crush the rest of the sacred mountains and usher in a brave new world. Joie Fan left the sea of flames. A shadow watched him go from a distance, decimating dragon ancestors' fire. He's with the sacred beasts. The man shook and looked back to see Chu Qingsheng groaning. The man shook his head. The kid has different tastes now, giving a sovereign path to this girl. The man left as well. A month later, news of the 6 sacred mountains' destruction rocked the sacred domain. The top power in the sacred domain for eons up and got crushed just cause you said so? Not even the dragons would do it if they could. They can crush a mountain as well, but they could never destroy all of them. For even dragons could be surrounded and defeated as more and more mountains joined the attack. That was why the dragons had no chance against the sacred mountains now. Though, the 6th sacred mountain was no more. It left people in disbelief, for this meant one thing only, that the other party was so strong it could finish a mountain like nothing, and that it was so large that it trumped the 6 sacred mountains' defenses, stopping them from even calling for help. When did the sacred domain have such a powerful group? People shook their heads. Damn blasted rumor. How come something like this happens? What fool would believe this crap? Ha ha, what morons. Then came the Luo clan's announcement, stirring the people once more. The rumor they wrote off as exaggeration ended up confirmed. That meant they could believe it, leaving the people in shock that a sacred mountain was no more. What was even more astonishing was that the new Luo clan from the 8 emperors' lands was the one that did it. Is the Luo clan that strong? Can they go to war and crush the sacred mountains just cause they say it? That's the everlasting sacred mountains for eons and eons we're talking about here. Some upstart clan up and wasted the 6th mountain and its people. Everyone in the sacred domain felt numb, their world view crumbling. So sacred mountains aren't that tough like they claim. Their day has come, and a new overlord will replace them. Chapter 1282, Mirror Moon Cottage. Chapter 1282, Mirror Moon Cottage. Proofreader, Papatonks. In a large hall on the 7th sacred mountain, 6 elders sat in their chairs. Overlooking the 3 youths below, the 3 youths kneeled in respect. The elder with the long beard nodded. You have been carefully selected among all the talents to go out and replace Su Tianchuan and the other 2 in taking over the 8 emperors' lands. I hope you won't disappoint us like they did. Mountain Lord, We won't fail you. They cupped their hands and declared. The elders nodded with smiles. Su Tianchuan's group had been an utter disappointment, but if there was one thing the Sacred Mountains had, it was disciples. They had done a harsher selection this time around and chosen the best of the best to replace those fools. This should settle it. Ha ha. The elder with the long beard waved them away. You're to leave in 3 days. Yes, Mountain Lord. They bowed again as they withdrew. The elder with the long beard turned to the others. I have high hopes for these 3. They aren't arrogant and reckless. They are more than enough to take over the 8 emperors' lands. Yeah, the others nodded, and an elder with white brows added, Oldie's been gone for a long time to just be setting those 3 brats straight. What's taking him so long? We haven't heard from the brats either. Strange. The others squinted. The elder with the long beard waved it off. Ha! Those brats must have been so berated by old he that they feel too ashamed to come back. They must be working hard to make up for their mistakes in the 8 emperors' lands. It may take time to uproot the devious and heinous Luo clan from this world and restore the Sacred Mountain's dignity. Oldie must be keeping watch. Everything should be fine. Ha ha. Everyone nodded and smiled. Mountain Lord, this is bad. A shocked voice came from outside. The elder with the long beard frowned and shouted back. What happened that has you so panicked? Report. Mountain Lord, this is really bad. A young man entered the hall incoherent and distraught. He fell to his knees and stammered. It's crazy, utter madness. What is? Speak clearly. The 8 emperors' lands have risen up. The youth yelled. Su Tianchuan and the 2 senior brothers were killed by the Luo clan, and their heads are hanging on the Luo clan's gate. They also declare to all the lands that they'll eliminate the 7 sacred mountains. What? The 6 elders were shocked, with the elder with the long beard slapping his armrest in rage. Outrageous. The Luo clan must have gone mad to kill someone from the sacred mountains. And they even dare say something like that? Humph. They should have been removed from the start. Tell some elders to annihilate the Luo clan. Let all the 8 emperors' lands know what braggarts get for running their mouth. The disciple cried there, still not going out. The elder with the long beard roared. What are you standing there for? I gave you an order. Mountain Lord, I don't believe a few elders are enough. This involves the 6th sacred mountain. Allow me to finish. What? A few sacred mountains elders aren't enough for a nobody clan? I even thought it was too much. The elder with the long beard shook and glared. Who is your master? You dare question my orders? The disciple reported. Mountain Lord, I'd never. There's just another matter I need to report. Mountain Lord can decide after Sir hears it. Speak. The 6th sacred mountain is no more. Ugh. The 6 old men went wide-eyed from disbelief. The elder with the long beard blinked at a loss. See, come again. The youth repeated himself, and the head elder finally clutched his sparse hair in shock. This can't be. The elder with the long beard howled at last. Oldie's 6th sacred mountain has many experts with hardly anyone daring to attack it, with no one capable of crushing it. For the disciple to say that it meant this was real, how could a mighty sacred mountain? The elders were dark, their hearts sinking in fear. If the 6th sacred mountain was gone, then what about the rest? They all shuddered. The grand and godlike mountain lords for thousands of years might be gone overnight. Dread gripped their hearts. Who did it? Did you find out? As long as the culprit doesn't say it, it will be hard to find out. The elder with white brows spoke in shock. The others nodded. Their faced hard. The disciple bowed. Mountain lords, there's no need to investigate, for the culprit declared it himself. Who? They all shouted at the same time. The youth muttered. The Luo clan from the 8 emperors' lands. What? Mountain lords, the information first came from the Luo clan's announcements. It declares that Mountain Lord he had gone to the Luo clan and took their clan head. So the head steward Zhuofan went to the 6th sacred mountain in rage. He not only rescued his clan head, but also flattened the mountain. The youth retold the same words on the declaration. No one took it seriously when they declared war, but with the 6th sacred mountain gone, the 8 emperors' lands are boiling. The people go to the Luo clan and help them defeat us. All of emperor lands see us with enmity. Mountain lords, This is why I did not convey your order. With the Emperor lands as our enemy, sending someone will have all eyes on them. But with the Luo clan having the power to destroy a mountain, there's even more reason to be prudent. Sending the elders will only get them killed. I ask Mountain Lord to reconsider. The elder with the long beard's face twitched and clenched his fists. A puny 8 Emperor's Land clan dared to destroy a sacred mountain? Something just isn't right here. Yeah, this much power is a rarity. Unless... What? The head elder turned to the elder with white brows. The latter continued. Do you all remember the ancient legend? You mean, the 10 sovereigns fell, the 5 beasts vanquished, Shu Jing is gone, and the sacred mountains live on. The elder with white brows said, after the supreme experts vanished in ancient times, the sacred mountains took over the sacred domain. But there's one place that still strikes fear in us. Mirror Moon Cottage. They all shouted. The elder with white brows continued. Yes, the lord of Mirror Moon Cottage, Sir Shui Jing, is rumored to be exceptional. Some of our people offended him in ignorance and made thousands of saints on 7 sacred mountains die. No one knew what happened or who triggered it. Since then, the 7 sacred mountains made a rule to never mess with Sir Shui Jing and his people. After all these years, with the sacred mountains growing with every generation, Sir Shui Jing was never seen again and was forgotten. Now that the 6th sacred mountain is destroyed, it made me remember about an old senior's warning. Maybe the Luo clan is theirs. SSS. Everyone gasped, their hearts shuddering. If it were true, then they had brought doom to themselves. Chapter 1283. Illusion. The steward demonic emperor. Between the walls of an empty valley stood a bamboo pavilion. The waterfall next to it rumbled as it fell in a clear pool, completing the mesmerizing scenery. A youth in white of around 20 sat in the pavilion, playing the zither. His finger gracefully traced the strings, sending a soothing melody throughout the valley. Birds and butterflies gathered around, drawn to his music. Ugh! A groan came from a bed hidden by a curtain. The young master never stopped his performance. Awake? Where am I? Chu Qingchang parted the veil and looked about. She was pale, squinting at the scenery with alertness. Who are you? The youth smiled. Miss, you're safe here. I mean you no harm. You have exhausted yourself in the 6th sacred mountain, affecting your soul. You're still weakened and need rest. You didn't answer my question. Chu Qingcheng was on guard. The youth paused. Miss is so cautious. I can't understand how you could let that he Haodong fool you so easily into wasting your yuan qi. Ha ha ha. It's good that you didn't care too much about him, or you'd have lost more than just your yuan qi, the thing someone granted you. But this proves how kind you are. I can understand why he'd give it to you. What are you talking about? Nothing. I'm just recalling some old matters. The youth continued playing. Allow me to introduce myself. Everyone calls me Sir Shui Jing, and Miss can call me the same. This is my home, Mirror Moon Cottage. Miss, you can stay here safely and no one will disturb you. Chu Qingcheng gave him a long look. You're keeping me here? No, I'm only inviting Miss to be my guest. You won't stop me from leaving? Of course not. I'm a man of my word. Shui Jing focused on playing the zither. Chu Qingcheng nodded and smiled. You're a dog if you break it. Not just a dog, but a she-dog. I want to find you a fan. Don't stop me. Chu Qingcheng flew out of the pavilion and into the sky. Shui Jing kept playing the zither. Chu Qingcheng raised an eyebrow. I don't care who you are, but you can't keep me here. I am looking for Zhuo Fan to see what he has to say about you. If you're nice, I'll come back and thank you. But you're too strange to be nice. Chu Qingcheng flew further away. An hour later, Chu Qingcheng crossed 10 mountains and saw no one on her way, not even a trace of civilization. She was perplexed. Where am I? There's no one here. She wanted to find someone and asked for directions to the Luo clan. 6 hours later, Chu Qingcheng was still feeling weak. She was getting tired from flying and the blazing sun overhead. She then noticed a creek in a valley and landed. But then she heard a zither being played and perked up. Where there's a zither, there's people. Chu Qingcheng skipped over to the source. brushing the veil away to enter the pavilion. "Excuse me," is Chu Qingcheng froze in her tracks. It was Shui Jing who kept playing. Shui Jing smiled. "Miss Chu, you're back? You need to rest in your condition. Why is it you?" Chu Qingcheng looked around dumbstruck. "Why am I back here? I clearly left." Shui Jing shook his head, smiling. Chu Qingcheng cupped her hands in anger. "Goodbye." Chu Qingcheng rushed out again, with Shui Jing still playing. Another 12 hours passed, and Chu Qingcheng looked determined but tired. She paused in the air in shock. The familiar zither was heard once more. "Maybe, no, he can't still be here." Chu Qingcheng shook her head and landed in the familiar valley, seeing Shui Jing with a zither. Shui Jing smiled. "Miss Chu, you need to rest after being gone for so long, or you're only going to get worse." What did you do?" Chu Qingcheng clenched her hands in anger. "You said you won't keep me, but you're not honest." The zither stopped, and Shui Jing smiled. "Miss Chu, have I done something to you? You must have put up an illusory array to keep me returning here every time. You're holding me prisoner." Shui Jing shook his head. "Miss Chu, I vow on my Tao heart that there's no array around. Why can't I go out? This is Mirror Moon Cottage, where everything is an illusion. Fame and fortune, love and hate, these are what trap mortals from seeing the way out. What keeps you here is no array, but your own heart." Shui Jing smiled and vanished, his voice sounding through the valley. "Miss Chu, just rest here. I will come back every few days. Take care." "Wait, let me go." Chu Qingcheng shouted at the air. She took a deep breath and shot out with determination in another direction. But she still ended up here. Panting from exhaustion, Chu Qingcheng tried again and again, with the same result. All she had done was waste time and energy. After trying for 8 times, Chu Qingcheng was too spent and blacked out in the air. She fell, but the stones below warped and turned into the bed in the pavilion. The next morning, Chu Qingcheng woke up to find herself back in the bed and saw the same waterfall outside and birds chirping. Her heart was in a panic, unable to escape. Shui Jing looked down from a tall peak with a sneer. "Everything is an illusion here, with riches and fame ephemeral. The ignorant can't escape their own hearts. Chu Qingcheng is a rare good person, yet not even she can, let alone others. The world is hopeless, isn't it, Sword Heart? No matter whether they appear hopeless, fate is not for ants to decide. It's the will of the heavens." A middle-aged man next to him had a sharp gaze. His empty left sleeve floated in the wind. Shui Jing held a confident smile, like he was in control, leaving. Sword Heart watched him go with a hard gaze. The last act of Heaven's will was about to start. The Steward, Demonic Emperor. Chapter 1284, Confrontation. The Steward, Demonic Emperor, tap, tap. A finger struck the table, betraying Zhuo Fan's pensive mind. Li Jingtian rushed into the room, and Zhuo Fan quickly asked, "What's the news?" "Steward Zhuo, there's no clue about Miss Chu. I couldn't find." Li Jingtian sighed with a hung head. Zhuo Fan looked down as well, pacing in thought. There aren't many that can breach the sacred mountains and take someone away, and even fewer are those capable of doing it without leaving a trail. I just can't figure out who could be behind this. Did anyone in the sacred domain have such a power? Li Jingtian was worried. He was new to the sacred domain, but even he had heard many rumors about most powers in these lands. To him, the sacred mountains were the peak of the sacred domain. Who then could steal someone from under their nose? They can't be a nobody, that's for sure. Steward Zhuo, does the sacred domain have any hidden experts? Li Jingtian mentioned. Zhuo Fan shook his head. For them to be hidden means not many are aware of them. I do know of a few rogue saints, but they aren't as strong as the sacred mountains, let alone taking someone from them. Unless what? Elderly, who are above saints? Li Jingtian lit up. Sovereign. Zhuo Fan was grave. He'd seen his fair share of sovereigns, and feared the one that never showed himself. He had been consoling himself thinking they were all gone, or that they were too weak to show up. But after meeting them, he woke up to reality. It's not that they can't be found, but they don't want to be found. While them finding you can't be easier. Was taking Chu Qingcheng a clear strike on me, though? Was the culprit the one he feared the most? Zhuofan was sunk in thought. He didn't fear death, but involving innocence. He was no longer alone. Is the Luo clan steward, Zhuofan, here? I am 7th Sacred Mountain Lord, He Yunshan, here to request a meeting. Star Reader, not related to 6th Mountain Lord. Different surname. The sound of thunder struck from the sky and shook the Luo clan. Zhuofan heard and winced. The 7th Mountain Lord? Here so soon? Steward Zhua, the dragons are still silent. What do we do? Li Jingtian was tense. Zhuofan thought for a moment. Relax, for them to seek us and not fight us proves they are afraid. The dragon breath pill might have gotten to them. We just have to be cool about it, and they won't do anything. Let's go meet them. Yes, Steward Zhua. Zhuofan led the way with Li Jingtian behind. The two flew for the city gates. The Luo clan's gates were surrounded by hundreds of people surging with incredible strength that struck fear in all. Saints. In the lead were 6 people, the Mountain Lords. The elder with a long beard squinted and analyzed everyone. His eyes flickered with doubt. The others were just as baffled. That's strange. All of the Luo clan is filled with nobodies. There are some at the Emperor's stage with impressive strength, but nothing Sacred Mountains can't handle. Would the Sacred Mountains bother with a clan lacking even a saint? Absolutely not. So how come this nobody clan ended up flattening a Sacred Mountain? The 6 elders whispered among each other. What do you think? Completely average and not anything like Sir Shui Jing. A great master should have great disciples. It makes no sense for Shui Jing to not have saints. The problem lay with Steward Zhuofan. They say he alone went to level old He's peak. Is it only him under Shui Jing? We'll test it out, and if they're related to Sir Shui Jing, we'll just gloss over it. At worst, he'll lead the 8 Emperor's lands. It was old He who messed with the Luo clan. It has nothing to do with us. The elders nodded, looking like obscene sycophants with those bobbing heads and flattering looks. But the elder with a white long beard looked hard. But if Sir Shui Jing has nothing to do with Zhuofan or the Luo clan, that they're only acting, then we can't have this clan breathe a second more, regardless of who leveled the 6th Sacred Mountain. Our dignity shall not be stepped on by some bugs. No one will fear us otherwise. They all agreed. Yep, hard on the weak and cowards against the strong, classic thugs. Whoosh, Zhuofan, and Li Jingtian arrived, and the elders looked startled. Zhuofan was in the Foundation establishment stage, worse than a cripple. But since he could fly in, that meant he was far stronger. The elders looked grave. Caution is advised against him. The elder with a long beard began with a cough. I am 7th Sacred Mountain Lord, He Yunshan. Are you perhaps the Grand Steward by the name of Zhuofan? It is I. Zhuofan smiled. To what do we owe the visit? Why, Steward Zhua doesn't know. He Yunshan raised an eyebrow in anger, his eyes cold. Didn't you hear how everyone says that Steward Zhua leveled the 6th Sacred Mountain? Zhuofan nodded with a smile. There's no need to hear, for I did do it. Fast talker. He Yunshan cursed at Zhuofan's blunt reply, while he was looking calm on the outside, even praising him with a thumbs up. The others were dark. Zhuofan's carefree reply let them know he wasn't scared of the hundreds of saints around. He never gave a hoot about the Sacred Mountains, for he had a stronger backer. Should we step down then? Oldie's peak outwasted. It's not our problem anyway. We're not even close. There's no need to fight with some mystery expert. The elders withdrew on the spot. He and Sean paused and shouted, Since Steward Zhua admits, then I'll be frank as well. What has the 6th Sacred Mountain done to earn Steward Zhua's ire? As he was of the 7 Sacred Mountains, like us, we would like to know the reason. Shit, do we not come to find their limit to see if they can bleed or not? Why nitpick? Chapter 1285, Dragon Emperor, the Steward Demonic Emperor. The crowd watched the old fool running his mouth with all kind of tricks, then just walked off like it was nothing. Oh, right, since they're fleeing from Zhuofan, doesn't that mean that the Sacred Mountains are afraid? What about our dignity? What about ruling the sacred domain? Since He Haodong was dead, and he started lashing out at him, that was just to keep appearances for the people that the Sacred Mountains were still honorable. The Sacred Mountains are just We are not here to pick on the weak and steal. We just didn't know, or we'd have long put a stop to this. That ought to buy people's opinion. The real issue was Zhuo Fan. If he was related to Sir Shui Jing, the Sacred Mountains dumped everything on He Haodong to save them the trouble. So they sold out He Haodong to escape Sir Shui Jing's issue. 3 birds with 1 stone. He and Shan looked to be talkative, but in fact he was saving his skin. Geezer, you still have tricks, I see. Impressive. The old guy sighed at He Yunshan's prideful exit. They were the peak of the sacred domain, holding the best resources and sought Dao for the sovereign stage, while not messing with the trifles of those below. The insights gained from the negotiations millions of years ago seemed forgotten. As they got stronger, they were rather straightforward, not willing to waste time with anything. It was a surprise to see Mountain Lord He so sharp at his age, using his noggin to maneuver out of this pickle. Ha! While the Sacred Mountains were scared of Zhuo Fan and withdrew, a sudden shout came from above all. What are you bastards doing at the Luo clan? They are under my protection. A draconic roar. A golden tail, 500 meters long, hacked at the saints. The deadly power made some of the weaker saints gasp. What kind of power is this? Dragon Sovereign. The 6 mountain lords gasped. They shuddered, and 6 golden sacred bodies emerged. They used all their power to block the tail. Bam! The sudden clash rent the space, with the entire sky soon turning pitch black like the sky just shattered. The 6 mountain lords staggered 5 steps, looking grave. Boom! The huge dragon turned into a tough man, standing tall in the sky. The sudden stomping he made created 2 black holes. He grinned with fire in his eyes. Ha ha! Geezers, I see you're missing someone. You're not facing me with the usual 7-star sacred sword array? Dragon Sovereign, what are you doing here? He and Shan squinted. Did you forget our deal? Dragons will never set foot on human lands, or the war between the 7 sacred mountains and dragons will start anew. And, humph, he and Shan mocked. I guess the pain faded with time. What about all those dragons that died last time? We're missing 1 sacred mountain, but 6 are more than enough to handle you dragons. Scurry back to your dragon lands if you don't want a repeat of the massacre. Ah, big words. Dragon Sovereign laughed. We had so many casualties last time because of your little tricks, baiting us to fight within the 8 Emperors' lands. Fighting in an unfamiliar place, we were butchered. You're not stronger than us, but you had a raise to waste our strength. That's why we died, because you whittled us down. It'll be the same now as well. These are our lands, and you will die. Wrong. This time the 8 Emperors' lands aren't the 7 sacred mountains' turf, but our backyard. The dragon's sovereign grinned. We no longer need to chase you around the 8 Emperors' lands, and only need to attack your mountains. We never fear an open confrontation, but you will suffer. He and Shan sneered. Backyard? As if. The 8 Emperors' lands are for human cultivators. You have now entered a swamp, with enemies on all sides. They may be weak, like bugs, but these bugs can bite you to death. You're delusional if you think they have your back. It's already done. The dragon's sovereign grinned in disdain, going to Zhuo Fan to shock everyone with his salute. Steward Zhuo, I heard you have all of the 8 Emperors' lands at your beck and call. I am astonished. Now, I have a clear line of sight for the sacred mountains. I only ask for your forgiveness for being stalled by minor difficulties. Dragon Sovereign is too kind. I've been looking forward to having you with us and helping us. Now I'm thrilled to have you. Zhuo Fan bowed back. He and Shan and the elders were dumbstruck. Zhuo Fan. Steward, the Dragon Sovereign, gave them a taunting look. Based on your words last time, we have come with all our forces to deal with the sacred mountains. A 1 million strong army, including 3,000 dragon saints, 12,000 dragon emperors, and hundreds of thousands of dragon kings and below, are marching through the 8 Emperors' lands without obstruction. They will be here with you shortly. I've never had such an easy trek in ages, and it's all thanks to Steward Zhuo. Ha! He Yunshan's face twitched, roaring, Zhuo Fan, you betrayed your kin and let dragons invade? And you call yourself a man? Of course, since I never harmed my kin. Zhuo Fan sneered. While you, standing aloft in your sacred mountains, have stolen everything from the sacred domain, its cultivation arts and resources, crushing the cultivators like bugs. Do you call yourself a man? Your win against the dragons was because the sacred domain had your back, but after the war, you still tyrannized the 8 emperors' lands, not even appreciating their help and sacrifice. You're not fit to rule the sacred domain. Zhuo Fan cursed them with a smile. I grew up in the 8 emperors' lands, having grown stronger only by stealing from others until I finally became the demonic emperor. I had no gratitude for anyone, nor did I treat anyone as my equal, for I got everything with my own 2 hands. While I had no love, I hated all of you from the sacred mountains. Why do you get to have the best resources and lord over us without doing anything? The sacred mountains people, even those inferior in talent, are just given strength, but others have to work for it. The 8 emperors had to give more than half of the land's resources to you before they could share anything with their people. But what about those that toiled to gather these resources your sacred mountains so easily obtained? They got only scraps. Those rogue cultivators are even worse off, like me. And power is everything in the sacred domain. The weak are not fit to have anything. Strive to take it if you can. Yinshan barked. Zhuo Fan nodded and clapped. You're right. I understood this only after becoming an emperor. All that strive below are nothing but ants, no matter how happy or miserable. They are nothing for the ones above. To change your fate, you shouldn't rob each other, but instead the highest peak. So I'm now robbing just like you wished, huh? Ugh. Yinshan blinked, his heart racing in anger. They were always working to stop those ants from doing that. Now, a damn power actually showed up that could do it. Glancing at the sneering dragon sovereign, Yinshan gritted his teeth. Damn Zhuo Fan, humanity's traitor, letting dragons in like the little bastard he is. So stop trying to use humans and dragons to differentiate us. To me, there's only enemy and ally. Zhuo Fan sneered. You always use a few meager resources to lure cultivators of the 8 emperors' lands to fight against each other. When the dragons attacked, you used them again as expendables under the guise of a human alliance. Now I have all the 8 emperors' lands and the dragons in a human-dragon alliance. And our enemy is only you, the sacred mountains. Bullshit. You think everyone's like you? Greedy and willing to help the dragons crush the pinnacle of humanity? Yeah, many refused at first, but then I declared my war on the sacred mountains and that all of your resources and high cultivation methods are ours. The people jumped at the offer. What? All of the sacred mountains experts shouted, feeling a chill down their spine. The steward demonic emperor. Chapter 1286, Bloody War. The steward demonic emperor at their dark faces, Zhuo Fan shrugged with a smile. Why act that way if I knew? As humans, none of us would willingly recruit another race to fight other humans. If this does occur, then the perpetrator should ask themselves what they did to make it happen. You just had to share your resources and high cultivation methods with the people of the 8 emperors' lands, giving them hope of rising to the top, and they would never resort to this. Where then is the virtue, the honor, in fighting for someone that won't even feed them? You made it this way with your own actions. No, the sacred mountains must live forever, and for that to happen, no outsiders are allowed to invade. We are in the right. Yinshan spoke with conviction. Zhuo Fan, I admit that you're a rare talent, but you're not one of us. The more amazing you are, the more you need to die so that we can remove all threats to the sacred mountains. This shall never change. And thus you dug your own grave. When the water is stagnant, it will need to flow again. You've been at the top for too long. Your disciples have everything and lost everything. Without experience, without hardship, there's no progress. This is the root cause for not having a single sovereign despite all your saints, not even a half-sovereign. You're nothing but thugs hoarding resources with a bit more yuan qi than the rest. You are strangling the prospects of future generations. You all are the real criminals of humanity. Yinshan's face twitched. The sacred mountains train in the strongest cultivation methods, and we don't move around as long as we have resources so that we ease our understanding of Tao. This is the fastest way to the sovereign stage. Instead of sharing resources thinly across everyone, We centralize the resources on the best talents. None of the resources will be wasted. Of course, these cultivators must support the sacred mountains as well. We must keep it in the family. Haha, excuses. Zhuo sighed and shouted, Shangwan Fei Xiong with me. Whoosh. Shangwan Fei Xiong flashed before him, and Zhuo patted his shoulder. He's of average talent, yet can fight most of your saints as just an emperor. Care to try? As if that's possible. He Yunshan sneered. The difference in those stages is insurmountable. Not even the 8 emperors could harm a saint. We shall see. He pushed Shangwan Fei Xiong forward, and the latter moved forward. He Yunshan looked at a disciple, and that disciple stepped out, immediately summoning his sacred body. He's the worst saint of ours. I'll be easy on you, so boom. A shocking explosion cut off his smug declaration. A scarlet glow ran through the disciple's sacred body, punching a large hole in it. The disciple coughed blood and slumped to the ground while his sacred body vanished. What? Everyone gasped, watching the red sword image return to Shangwan Fei Xiong's body. Soaring sword mark. Much obliged. Shangwan Fei Xiong returned to Zhuo, bowing. The elders were dumbstruck. How did an emperor do that? The dragon sovereign laughed. Steward Zhuo has amazing people. My elders said your men are incredible, far beyond average, and can contend with our dragons, if not overcome them. Now that I see it, I'm convinced, Thank you, Dragon Sovereign. Zhuo smiled, turning to the dumbstruck elders. He's my weakest as well, but through his experiences, he came to make his own sword art. Tao and martial arts are a combination beyond anyone's imagination. Cooped up in your precious mountains, hoarding resources is actually an utter waste. If you had any bit of wisdom, you'd have shared them instead of stealing them from normal cultivators. He Yunshan glared at Zhuo and left. Zhuo, Dragon Sovereign, see you on the battlefield. He won't give up until it's too late. Stuck with his own idea despite having no argument. Then let them witness our alliance's might until he cries, hee. The Dragon Sovereign said, Steward Zhuo, besides us, many spiritual beasts have answered the call of the sacred beasts, coming over. We're going to erase the sacred mountains from this world. Zhuo nodded. Humans are such hypocrites. They want an eternal win, but hate all that's evil, making up some grand excuse in the end. When all facades are stripped away, they play the devil. Ha ha ha. I'm ashamed to call myself human. Would you like to be a part of us then? You inherited dragon ancestors' refined body and Qilin arm. You're no longer a human. Even so, I still want to be humane. Why? Dragon Sovereign asked. Didn't you just mock humanity's character? Yeah, but there are some... Zhuo smiled and looked at all the people in the city. I'm no longer alone. The sacred mountains returned to prepare for war. The elders were dark, with the elder with long beard saying to He Yunshan, Old fellow, are we really going to war? Does Zhuo have anything to do with Sir Shui Jing? Most likely not. He must have got the help of the dragons to ruin the 6th sacred mountain. There's no connection with Sir Shui Jing. Why so certain? He Yunshan paused in his flight. They say Sir Shui Jing is like a ghost, incredible and elusive. He alone can wipe out our 7 sacred mountains. So why go to dragons for help? Dragon Sovereign's appearance proved that Zhuo has the dragon's support and not Sir Shui Jing's. That makes sense. The elder with a long beard sighed. But the dragons aren't much better either. We've lost the 8 emperors' lands, our best front lines, and we now have no choice but to fight in the open. We'll suffer greatly. We still have to go to war. He Yunshan clenched his fist, his eyes firm. We'd have hopes of salvaging this if it were mere revenge or about the sacred mountain's dignity. But you heard Zhuo plan. The punk wants to share everything that makes the sacred mountains dominant in the sacred domain. Losing this war means losing our hold on the sacred domain. We can never allow this to happen. They all nodded. You want our riches? In your dreams. The 6 mountain lords rushed back to their mountains to prepare. With the 8 emperors' lands no longer theirs to block the dragon's advance, the sacred mountains would become the main battlefield. Shortly thereafter, the war began. With so many people fighting in such a small area, the war could only be a bloody one. This was the first ever sacred domain war. With all beings now fighting, the 8 emperors' lands, dragons, sacred mountains, and spiritual beasts. With each deafening quake, along with terrifying shock waves, the weaker cultivators and dragons fell to their deaths, the first victims of the disaster. The 7 sacred mountains placed a guardian formation and formed their defenses while Zhuo Fan and the dragon sovereign commanded a raging charge. The 7 sacred mountains had plenty of experts, though, with only the dragons having the power to handle 3 of the mountains. But as they were defended, the dragons were at a disadvantage, suffering grave losses. Zhuo Fan didn't mind, slowly chipping them away as they fought. He waited for the spiritual beast army to arrive and showcase their true power. With the 9 Serenity's secret records in his hand, he knew all arrays. In just half a month, Zhuo Fan stripped the 6 sacred mountains' defensive arrays. The savage beasts ran amok across their mountains, killing anything on sight along with the dragons. The sacred mountains' army crumbled. Zhuo Fan's side held supremacy with their unstoppable power. The lofty sacred mountains that had stood above in the sacred domain for millions of years were about to fall. In the clamor of the battlefield, 9 shadows appeared above, each holding piercing eyes and thick aura beyond what any sane on the sacred mountains could achieve. The steward, demonic emperor. Chapter 1287, Half-Sovereign. The steward, demonic emperor. Boom. The string of explosions drowned the bitter cries of demise and endless fighting on the battlefield. Both sides couldn't even hear their own voices. A million dragons, from big to small, blotted the sky. Their savage claws turned enemies into ribbons. 100,000 giants faced them on the battlefield like gods of war, stopping their onslaught. As wails and cries echoed about, the giants vanished one by one, with some dragons riddled with holes tumbling to the ground. The earth was soaked in blood, covered in corpses, yet no one cared, each too busy butchering the other side. The sheer brutality of this war drove all its fighters into a frenzy. Whoosh, 2 black sword waves flashed, and 2 giants fell. Zhuo Fan held his demonic sword as he marched in his sacred body. The sacred mountains experts were nothing to him. Dan Xingxin's group had nobody who could summon a sacred body, but their special imperial marks were enough to bridge the gap and contend with early saints. As for the Luo clan, they were pinned against the weaker forces of the sacred mountains. The sacred mountains were filled with experts, and the Luo clan was too weak to really stand out. The rest of the 8 emperors' lands forces that came for a peace now could hardly find someone to fight. Shit. The Luo clan has so many experts in their pockets. Watching the endless blood flowing, a spirit king sighed, looking tense the next second. What are we even doing here? We can't do anything. Looking at his team, thinking to join the war only to find out it was so brutal. Any errant shockwave could blast them apart. They were just too weak for this stage. They were cannon fodder to begin with. Another man looked around for any opening, but shook his head. Let it go, brothers. Even the weakest of the sacred mountains aren't for us. Let's wait for the end and scour the battleflied. Think about all the good stuff they must have on them. They're easy picking. What are you standing there for? Aren't you going to lend a hand? A shout shook the group, lowering their heads. Young Miss Luo, we have little strength to be of any help. Who said anything about fighting? Help with logistics. Do you have any idea how many healing pills we need? How many wounded need looking after? We need all the help we can get, so don't just sit there and watch. Logistics? The guy's face twitched. Young Miss Luo, we're still spirit kings. I'm not called North Forest Ravager for nothing. Putting us to work, isn't it a little? We came to fight sacred mountains, not. Then by all means, fight. Luo Yunchang nodded, gesturing at the cruel and bloody scene. How about taking on the enemy to leave your mark? I'll even give you a sacred mountain for your efforts. Glancing at the space riddled in black cracks and holes, with limbs flying all over the place, he gulped hard. Leave the wounded to us and the logistics. The front lines have sunk into madness. The group left at once with lowered heads. They were all heroes and wanted to use this historic event to make their names known throughout the lands, but they were just too weak. Schwanger sighed as they went. Sister Yinchang, they just wanted some credit to spur their careers. Your harsh tone cut them deep. Humph, they're too cocky to be able to do anything. He's just some local boss, yet he calls himself the North Forest Ravager. He came here to bite something, and I saved him and his group from a meaningless and ignorant death. Luo Yunchang sneered, glancing at Zhuo Fan. He's not like Zhuo Fan, knowing his worth, laying low or taunting accordingly. A leader must be flexible. It is how the Luo clan conducts itself. Amaze the world in one fell swoop, if you have what it takes. Shuang nodded. Big Brother Zhuo is nearing the peak, and he will make his appearance. Bam! With the lashing of a huge golden tail, the 6 mountain lords fell back 5 steps. The huge golden dragon roared in mockery. Ha! Old fools, the sacred mountains are done for, and so are you. You have nothing. He and Shan looked around at the battlefield dominated by dragons and spiritual beasts, while his forces were thinning out faster and faster. Zhuo Fan and the Luo clan were fierce as well, giving him a chill. They had it bad enough against spiritual beasts and dragons, united in an unprecedented alliance, but Zhuo Fan's force made it even worse, dooming his sacred mountains. He just didn't understand why these beasts would join up. They never had any contact. Old He Flee, the elder with a long beard, said. He and Shan looked back to see the others nodding. Where there's life, there's hope. The long-bearded elder grabbed his shoulder. We lost the sacred mountains, but it won't matter. We need to stay alive and kindle the hope of our disciples to make a comeback. Old man, we have lost, so let's go. What's done is done. He and Shan's lips shook, clenching his fists. He gave a firm nod and shouted, Sacred mountains, retreat. The 6 were the first to flee. The disciples had long since lost their will to fight and fled as well. Leave none alive after them. Zhuo Fan was not about to give them any chance of hiding. He roared and took the lead in going after them. The rest followed in a mad race. The dragon sovereign whipped his tail to launch himself behind the 6 elders and claw at them. Ha ha ha, you think it's that easy? Dragon sovereign, don't be cruel. He and Shan gnashed his teeth, roaring to hide his fear. The dragon sovereign was the mightiest of the dragons, a peak 12th level spiritual beast, a half-sovereign. Chapter 1288, Ultimate Freaks. The steward demonic emperor Whoosh, an old man, came out of nowhere, with a short and red mustache. He was surrounded by a red glow, his eyes so sharp that even Dragon Sovereign felt pierced by his gaze. Dragon Sovereign's eyes shook. He's not a pushover, but an ancient power. Boom, more explosions resounded everywhere, and powerful waves swept the battlefield. Zhuo Fan's group got blocked by one of them and its radiance, unable to advance. Once the dust settled, he saw 7 figures of different ages holding incredible power. They looked plain, but they were ready to unleash devastation the moment they struck. Half-sovereigns. Zhuo Fan was grave, his legs going numb. He didn't know that the sacred mountains had 7 half-sovereigns. They were at the level of Dragon Sovereign, peak saints, yes, but world apart. For these people's understanding of Tao reached the peak, unlike average peak saints. Their power was tremendous. Didn't Dragon Sovereign say there's no one like that in the 7 sacred mountains? He had gone to 6 Sacred Mountain and saw no one similar either. That was why he threw the Dragon Breath pill. Why then would the 7 half-sovereigns come out only now? Zhuo Fan stood there, unmoving. The 7 were too strong, and the dragons and spiritual beasts sensed that. They no longer advanced. Just as they were about to finish off the sacred mountains, these 7 interfered to stop the mad chase. The disciples looked behind and gaped. Did we have such experts? How come I didn't know that? They were too dumbstruck to even think of fleeing. Dad, they feel familiar. Sword Child neared him and whispered. Zhuo Fan squinted and nodded. Yes, it's like the aura of the 5 divine swords. Danqing, Shun, Muron Lai, and the others were grave. We have trained on our insights on the divine swords and are most familiar with this energy. Vaulting, soaring, sealing heaven, sundering, decimating, they're all here. Only they're far deeper than our energies. They must be a level above us. It's not cultivation, but sword insight. Sword Child nodded. Yes, as I am a unity of the five, I can sense the sword path they wield, almost physically. That's why they're half-sovereigns. My apocalyptic sword path has the cultivation of half-sovereign, and I can fight, but this isn't the right time. Dad, should we fall back? It's not for us to decide. Joie Fan squinted at the seven. The others nodded and sighed. The war stopped only if the strong wanted to stop. They had the power to run amok the battlefield. But now that the seven half-sovereigns appeared, they lost all dominance. Or were they on Sacred Mountain's side? What did they want? To help the Sacred Mountains? Or were they a third party? Everyone was tense. Boom! A sudden explosion shook the skies as a large body crushed the ground. Everyone gasped at the wounded Dragon Sovereign, their strongest attacker. He was wounded and barely got to his feet. Joie Fan recognized what made those wounds. Whoosh! The red-mustached elder floated down. Joie Fan turned grave. Curses, another half-sovereign. The 6 mountain lords came back, looking smug. They could tell these experts were here to help them. Who knew what karma they sowed to deserve such boon in this late hour? We got 8 unstoppable experts to help us now, ha ha ha. Dragon Sovereign roared and glared at the red-haired elder. Who are you? Why are you helping those fools? The red-haired elder stood like the other 7, silent. Joie Fan saw the disregard and looked around for a way out. They didn't come to kill them. That was certain, just to stop Sacred Mountains from being utterly destroyed. They might get to withdraw at least. None here wanted to fight them anyway. Dragon Sovereign, I think we should. I don't care who you are. The grudge with the Sacred Mountains ends today. Those 6 must die. Dragon Sovereign roared over Joie Fan's advice, going at the 8 for an attack. Dragons, tear them apart. Don't! Joie Fan shouted, but it was too late. The red-haired elder gave him a glance. Then they moved. Huge sacred bodies appeared, each holding a sword, be it in flames, be it of frost. The red-haired elder held a red blade, shaking the heavens with its aura. Dragon Sovereign found himself surrounded by the 8 of them as they slashed. PFF, the huge Dragon Sovereign's eyes shook, his eyes burning, but then blood spilled everywhere as the 8 strikes landed. Dragon Sovereign was split apart, unleashing a torrent of blood. Some of the flesh froze, another was void of blood, and others were charred. The audience gasped in disbelief. This can't be happening. Dragon Sovereign, the strongest dragon, was dead in an instant. Joie Fan knew this was coming, and his heart sank, for the 8 outnumbered Dragon Sovereign. Fighting 8 at the same level was suicide. Dragon Sovereign wanted to win with numbers, but he misjudged the 8. They weren't just half-sovereigns, but had deep insights into the 5 sacred swords. Like the Sacred Mountain's disciples, they were the Sword Sovereign's men. It was obvious Dragon Sovereign would die so easily. Now that he was no more, the dragons were no longer a threat. Whoosh, the 8 returned before the crowd, withdrawing their sacred bodies, and waited. Danqing Shin nodded. The 5 sword paths. Yeah, their pinnacle. Joie Fan sighed. The invincible sword would have reached it as well if he came here. Curses, having 8 invincible swords blocking me is insufferable. The others nodded. In a mortal domain, 1 invincible sword was bad enough, but now there were 8. They were certain that even if they were half-sovereigns themselves, they still couldn't do anything to these freaks. They were geniuses, but these 8 were ultimate freaks like the invincible sword, 1 in a billion. They could see that despite the same sword path, they were leagues beyond their level. Danqing Shan's group clenched their fists. The 8 were the peak of sword arts they wanted to surpass. The Steward, Demonic Emperor. Chapter 1289, Master, the Steward, Demonic Emperor. The silence was deafening. The sudden event overwhelmed everyone. The mighty dragon's sovereign died, just like that, his tough body unable to block the 8 swords at all. The dragons were filled with rage and vengeance, only clenching their fists, while he and Shan beamed with joy at the turnaround. Experts came from above to save them. Heaven's mercy and ancestors' blessings are upon us. The elders rushed over with respect. Senior, may we know your great name? We are ever grateful to you for saving sacred mountains. Wretched thing, you killed our dragon sovereign. We won't let you get away with this. Kill them. A roar came from below, and the crowd howled in rage. The dragons turned into their main form and charged at the 8, all million of them. The 8 didn't care, looking over with a flat expression. Zhuofan's brow shook, shouting, "Stop! Stop this instant! This isn't right." The dragons had gone mad at the loss of Dragon Sovereign and couldn't hear him. Boom! A sword wave came crashing down, and the dragon army was reduced to slag, raining down as blood and gore. The huge dragons were cut down to an inch-sized chunks, those same tough bodies. Zhuofan's face shook from shock. Everyone paled and shuddered. Even the sacred mountain's people gaped. 1,000,000 dragons dead just like that. They all looked stiffly at a middle-aged man missing a left hand. The 8 half-sovereigns bowed at once. Another half-sovereign. Zhuofan gulped, looking grave, even scarier than the 8, an entire level above. Danqing Shan gazed at the one-armed man with a heavy heart. The 8 were like invincible sword, yet this man was actually stronger than the freaks. Unlike the 8, he had a sword that was related to the 8's, but different. This left Danqing Shan and the others contemplating. Sword Child stared hard. "Father, I find his aura even more familiar. I feel the same, but why?" Zhuofan muttered. "They inherited the 5 sword paths, but he doesn't look like it. He feels independent, yet not." Zhuofan winced just then, regaining his calm the next moment. "No way. Did I just meet him? I must be overreacting." Everyone looked at the newcomer with shock, joy, fear. No one noticed that his eyes were cold. Stop fighting. Both sides are at peace. Both parties eased a breath. He and Shan rejoiced. Someone had helped stop their sacred mountains from being destroyed. Zhuofan sighed. But at least they weren't on the sacred mountain's side, or his side would have been finished. The 8 invincible sword-like people were already a pain, but now this guy showed up. It was better not to fight. A shame for dragon sovereigns, wasted death. We'll think about avenging him later. Alas, not all were as sensible as him, with some on his side oblivious and ready to bring disaster on all. "Who are you? We almost had sacred mountains, and you just want us to stop?" A shout came from a human-dragon alliance. Zhuofan turned to look at an emperor from the Emperor lands, talking big. He saw there were only 9 enemies while they had millions, so he felt superior. He wanted the sacred mountain stuff, and to do that, he needed them dead. Zhuofan got his meaning, but wanted to wring his neck. Why? Because of power. We can't do anything with them here. Can't you just leave it well enough alone? Go die alone for all we care and not drag us into this. Fighting the sacred mountains had nothing to do with you either. You're so weak you're not even in the front lines. Someone get him on my sight. I don't want to see him ever again. Zhuofan shouted, and a Luo clansman dragged him like a dog. But the guy kept shouting, "Steward Zhuofan, what did I do? Why are you doing this to me?" Even more reason for you to die, for your ignorance. Make sure to burn him to ashes. Yes, the Luo clansman obeyed and dragged the poor devil to his doom. What did I do? The lone-armed man smirked. I am Sword Heart, Sir Shui Jing's close aide. Any objections? Sir Shui Jing, Sacred Mountain's elders, and Zhuofan cried out. The rest were stumped at who that was. Who is that? I never heard of him. Is he strong? Everyone whispered, pointing at the 9. They didn't know Shui Jing, but from their strength, they were sure he had to be incredible. He and Shan came to Sword Heart and cupped their hands. We thank Sir Shui Jing for his assistance. The 6 Sacred Mountains won't ever forget this. Sword Heart didn't even look at him. Steward Zhua, do you know Shui Jing? Danqing Shan saw Zhuofan's gaze and the crowd's oblivious looks and asked. No senior of Sacred Domain seems to know this man. Zhuofan nodded, squinting. Yeah, Sir Shui Jing's great name has been forgotten by the Sacred Domain, for he does not seek fame and fortune. How do you know him? How can I not? Zhuofan continued with a sigh. Since he is sort of my master. What? Danqing Shan gasped. Steward Zhuo's master? He and Shan gasped when he heard that, about to have a meltdown. Sir Shui Jing is his master? Then are these experts here to help us, or them? What do we do if they will help the brat? He and Shan and the elders looked between Sword Heart and Zhuofan. unable to come up with an answer. Sir Hart smiled. This only confused the 6 elders. Sir Shui Jing, you're still on that million-years-old issue? You first give us hope only to plunge us in despair? The Steward, Demonic Emperor. Chapter 1290, Invitation. The Steward, Demonic Emperor, Danqing, Shun looked at them cluelessly, asking, Steward Zhuo, what's going on? Isn't Sir Shui Jing on our side as your master? Not necessarily, Zhuo Fan muttered. I only call him master because of how I see him, not due to both of us accepting it as such. That was also just a chat I had, not truly an imparting of teaching. It's why I said he was sort of my master. Danqing Shun grew tense. What does that mean? Steward Zhuo, speak clearly. Shui Jing's people are too strong for us to handle. We need to know how to treat them. We're no different than strangers. It's best you keep your distance. Zhuo Fan nodded. This is an old story. When I was in the Radiant Stage, and in the Sacred Domain, I was cocky as a kid and pissed off a lot of people. I ended up severely wounded when I had the misfortune to find Mirror Moon Cottage, where Sir Shui Jing saved me and healed me for 2 weeks. In this time, Sir Shui Jing played the zither and chess with me, talking about demonic path. I had little understanding of the demonic path and was finally catching a glimpse of its meaning, that it was not just about fighting and stealing. If not for those 2 weeks, I wouldn't be here, instead ending up erratic like 4 scheming demons. Danqing Shin nodded. Sir Shui Jing has been kind and taught you, so Steward Zhuo sees him as a kind of master. No, I was just some brat then and had no right to call Sir Shui Jing friend. I just listened to his lectures. It's more right to say I was close to Elder Yuan, since we exchanged our thoughts and experiences on the demonic path. While with Sir Shui Jing, I had no path to begin with and could only listen. Zhuo Fan looked at them. I'm calling him master because in those weeks he taught me the way of the world, how to read the big picture. He said random demons are cannon fodder and never rise above. If I wanted to become a true demon, I needed to know the devil and humanity and control it so one could walk free. It was then I walked the demonic path, and I considered him my mentor, though he doesn't think much of the demonic path, which is why he's sort of a master as he walks another path. Danqing Shin nodded, and then I healed and left there. When I became the head of the 8 emperors, I wanted to give my thanks to him, but couldn't find him. Zhuo Fan felt at a loss. Many times I think back and feel it was a dream, that there's no Mirror Moon Cottage or Sir Shui Jing. But now I see that it's all real. It's not me who sought him, but him coming for me. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone, looking at Sword Heart. Sword Heart stared at him with a smile. Zhuo Fan, Sir Shui Jing wishes to see you. The usual place. I know. He gave a hard nod, turning to the rest. I'm going to see my mentor. If I don't come back, you're to take the Luo clan and retreat. Don't mess with anything in the Sacred Domain. Danqing Shun gasped. You think you're in danger? Who knows? I'll need to meet him first. Zhuo Fan sighed and flew towards the place in his memories. Sword Child wanted to follow, but a huge figure barred his way. Sword Heart. Sword Child stepped back in fear. It wasn't due to power, but instinct, something he couldn't control. Sword Heart smiled. There's no point for you to go. Sir Shui Jing will always see the one he wants, and those that want to see him won't ever get the chance. I'm Dad's sword. I'm not leaving his side. Sword Child spoke hard. Sword Heart nodded. Same here. I am Sir Shui Jing's sword, but I don't protect Sir, because there's no need. I just want to kill enemies. Sword Child clenched his fists, feeling familiarity and danger from him. Since we're free, let our swords have a chat. Sword Heart showed a smile at the child's cautious gaze. Sir Shui Jing might be interested in you and could let you return as Zhuo Fan. Sword Heart flew away. Sword Child went after him. The 2 sides and the 8 experts were left behind looking at each other with cold eyes. Ian Shan put on a thin smile. I wonder what Sir Shui Jing wishes to talk about with Zhuo Fan. Ha ha ha. Sword Heart took the child as well. Could you, sirs, assemble in Sacred Mountains Hall? The red-haired elder shouted, and the 7 experts urged the Sacred Mountains side to go there. He and Shan didn't ask, and followed their bidding since none could beat them. Danqing Shin paused. then gathered the Luo clan's forces to go home and wait. They were restless, worried for Zhuo Fan's sake. From what Zhuo Fan said, he expected the worst from Shui Jing's invitation. This only made them more worried. Zhuo Fan had always faced someone who he could strike at and handle with a preemptive strike. But this time he was passive in this invitation. I hope Steward Zhuo is overreacting and Sir Shui Jing will be amiable. Danqing Shun shook his head with a sigh. The others looked grave. Crossing mountain ranges, Zhuo Fan relied on his memories to reach the familiar valley with the pavilion. Taking a deep breath, Zhuo Fan nodded. I finally found it, just like before. But why did I come here then, but couldn't find it again? Whoosh! Zhuo Fan parted the veil and entered the pavilion with cupped hands. Sir Shui Jing, I come at your invitation. Zhuo Fan blinked, crying at the familiar voice. Qingcheng. Chu Qingcheng skipped over in a rush, throwing herself in his arms from joy. Did you come find me? How did you know I was here? I didn't. I came to see Sir Shui Jing. Zhuo Fan hugged her, happy, but then he calmed down. I see. It was Sir Shui Jing who rescued you. Chu Qingcheng frowned, shaking her head. I don't know. Since I fell unconscious in the Sixth Sacred Mountain, then I woke up here. That means Sir Shui Jing did it. Only he has such incredible skill to do it. But why did he bring you here? Is it? Zhuo Fan squinted. You're alone here? Where's Sir Shui Jing? Chu Qingcheng blushed, glaring at him. What did you say? You expect me to live here with another man? Humph. No, that's not it at all, Qingcheng. I was just asking where Sir Shui Jing was. Not here. He only met me the first time, then was gone for months. Chu Qingcheng muttered. Zhuo Fan, let's just leave. This place is strange. I just can't seem to leave no matter where I go. Strange. Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow and looked from where he came to find it had changed. Everything looked symmetrical and identical. The stony path he followed was now gone. Illusion. Zhuo Fan used his left eye, the black thunder flame burning strong, and the air twisted. Apocalyptic thunder flame, I could burn even illusions and could make an exit and shed light on what was happening. Sullivan, starting the next chapter, we have two endings. The first one that will be released is written by the author. Meanwhile, the second one is written by Star Reader, cause the ending by the author leaves us unsatisfied. Fan-made ending next chapter, The Steward Demonic Emperor. Chapter 1291, first ending, Showdown, The Steward Demonic Emperor, who black flames spread out and sizzled Zhuo Fan's surroundings, but nothing changed as he withdrew them. Chu Qingcheng panicked. How is it? Can you break the barrier? If there was a barrier. Zhuo Fan frowned in doubt. This doesn't look like a barrier or illusion. My thunder flame would have destroyed them by now if there was. Chu Qingcheng hesitated. This is really strange and absurd. Qingcheng, did Sir Shui Jing say something to you? Zhuo Fan asked. Chu Qingcheng pondered and nodded. He did vow on Dao Heart that there's no barrier or array. He also said that it's my heart keeping me here, not him. Heart trapping oneself. Zhuo Fan paced around. Humans are plagued with complex desire and could never see their real selves beyond them. You need to remove them and clear your heart to see clearly. Zhuo Fan took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Chu Qingcheng cocked her head. A hum was heard, and Zhuo Fan's surroundings had ripples spreading out, each twisted reality, even himself. Chu Qingcheng was baffled, but then a hand took her hand and left with her. She cried at the sudden force, stumbling. When she straightened, the surroundings left her speechless. The valley was gone, as was the waterfall and pavilion. They were now before a small courtyard with a building and a side room. Chu Qingcheng blinked at a loss. This is the valley you couldn't leave. Zhuo Fan smirked. It's nothing but a courtyard, stuck running circles in it. No matter where you went, someone kept deceiving your perception. Inability to break the hold kept you here. Chu Qingcheng gasped. There's a skill like that? Then how did you... Zhuo Fan's right eye shone in 3 golden halos. Maybe I have the same skill as the user. Zhuo Fan smiled as the rings faded, patting her hand. A zither played that drew Chu Qingcheng's attention and made her fearful, pulling on Zhuo Fan. It's him, that Shui Jing who trapped me. It's fine. What comes comes. Zhuo Fan led her to the sounds, arriving behind the building before a youth in his 20s playing the zither. Chu Qingcheng was scared, hiding behind Zhuo Fan, who bowed. Greetings, Sir Shui Jing. The zither didn't stop, with Shui Jing looking up at him. These years have helped you broaden your heart and mind, escaping the hold on your heart so soon. Very good. Shui Jing smiled. Zhuo Fan smiled. You're too kind, sir. I still have a long way to go. I didn't even realize when Sir tampered with my heart. Sir is the true expert. Ha ha ha. You're not as cocky as before. You've matured a lot. Shui Jing nodded and stopped playing. He waved to a chessboard. It's been ages since our last game. Allow me to see your progress. Zhuo Fan nodded, with your permission. He sat down with Chu Qingcheng next to him, looking at Shui Jing's mysterious smile. Pieces fell on the board, each fighting to overcome the other side. An hour later, the pieces looked entangled. You're much calmer now and have lost your recklessness. Shui Jing placed a white piece. Zhuo Fan nodded and placed a black one. I am grateful for your lecture. Gains and losses matter not. One needs to see the big picture to succeed. I will never forget that lesson. You not only held it close, but built on it. You're an entirely different person. You're too kind, sir. It's all thanks to you. It's a shame the same quirk remains. Shui Jing gave him a look and sighed. You like to take risks and employ schemes. That's very dangerous for a big player. The higher you go, the shrewder your opponent will become, just like you, if not better. By trying to be clever, you're only revealing your weakness to be destroyed. Ha! Shui Jing placed a piece, hard, removing many of Zhuo Fan's. The outcome was obvious. Zhuo Fan's face was dark. Yeah, sir's right. I started off as a nobody, unable to contend with the big players. But why do you, big players, still bother with a nobody like me, Heavenly Sovereign? You finally figured it out? Shui Jing replied with calm. Only Chu Qingcheng gaped. The Heavenly Sovereign? The strongest of the 10 ancient sovereigns? No way. Didn't they all fall? Even the Nether Sovereign could only wander the Nether Sea as a lost soul. How can the Heavenly Sovereign still be alive? Yeah, they have fallen. So how could the Heavenly Sovereign they all fought against still survive? Shui Jing chuckled, always staring at Zhuo Fan. What makes you so sure? Zhuo Fan spoke. Ever since I got Sir's divine eye of the void, I felt apprehensive, afraid that one day you'll come after me and ruin me for stealing it. But then I thought to myself that this was all a stage, as the other sovereigns showed themselves to me and taught me. I didn't think myself special for this many big players to value me so much. So I was thinking that maybe all of this is a setup. Yes, you're far stronger and can see the lining. Go on. Shui Jing waved. Zhuo Fan said, those freaks just now must be from the mortal domain. I could feel the aura of the sacred weapons on them. That moment I felt all was lost, that I would run into Sir and you would butcher me. But when I heard they were your men, all became clearer. Heavenly Sovereign, you don't want to kill me, but use me. You wouldn't have helped me otherwise, guiding me on the demonic path. Crack, Shui Jing clapped. Well said, but that's on the basis that I'm the Heavenly Sovereign. And if I'm not him, Moon Mirror fades to void, to nothing, which is the void path. Zhuo Fan laughed. Sir, you've stated who you were a long time ago. It's just that none ever thought of it from that perspective. Who would have thought that the first sovereign would now be toying with people as Shui Jing? The skill you used to trap me and Qingcheng in the courtyard was the divine eye of the void third stage, Mirage World, right? Zhuo Fan's right eye shone in 3 halos, but since I'm still weak and ignorant still in the void path, I can only create illusions in a certain area, while Sir is able to implant them in people's minds. I only escaped because I know some of the void path. Zhuo Fan, the Heavenly Sovereign, smiled. You've done well going to the mortal domain this time. I'm impressed. Thank you. But there's still something I've yet to understand. When you saved me and led me on the demonic path, it wasn't just a coincidence, was it? I just can't understand why all the big players are interested in little old me. Zhuo Fan shouted in the lion's den. The heavenly sovereign would have flattened him if his use ran its course. The fact he was breathing proved he had value, and it was now his turn to leverage that to find out the truth. Joa Fan had seen many things, and the confusion within him only grew deeper. Now he found the courage to have a showdown with his sovereign, the steward demonic emperor. Chapter 1292, First Ending, Cave of Emotions. The steward demonic emperor, the heavenly sovereign sneered. If you know you're a nobody, a pawn in the big player's game, then you should also know that no choice is yours. You've been guided without even realizing. It's not even a path you chose. My little brother. What do you mean? Joa Fan stared at him deeply, seeming confused. The heavenly sovereign shook his head. The past is the past. You don't have to know. But understand this, since I admit to leading you on, you should also play along. What makes you so sure I'll listen? Like I said, you have no choice. The heavenly sovereign mocked as he looked in Chu Qingqing's direction. Joa Fan tensed and clenched his fists. The space cracked to reveal a portal, reflecting a lush forest. Heavenly sovereign pointed. This is the emotion sovereign's seat of enlightenment. Go and take a sovereign path. The emotion sovereign? The most mysterious of the 10? Joa Fan blinked. He's barely been mentioned in the 9 Serenities secret records, with the world having who sharing any rumors about him. How am I supposed to do that? The heavenly sovereign smiled. You will do what others can't. Accepting their path is within their plans. Don't worry. Joa Fan squinted. You mean the Nether Sovereigns group? They gave me their path, and you have also. What the hell are you all up to? Would they still give it to me, knowing you had sent me? Joa Fan, you're overthinking it. Ha ha ha, the heavenly sovereign laughed. Remember my lesson. The higher you climb, the more useless tricks become. We all fight in the open to control everything. Our dealing has long been anticipated by those guys. That goes both ways as well. Just like this game of chess. We all can see what pieces go and stay, but the outcome is clear. You're in the open and not over, understand? Joa Fan didn't argue, glancing at Qingqing's worried face and reassuring her with a glance before going through the portal. Birds chirped and danced in the air from branch to branch. The place was paradise, without anything evil, heavy, or strange. It was the best place for one to live in seclusion. Though something was odd that caught his eye. Everything here came in pairs, including objects. 2 insects flying side by side, squirrels hopping together, and even weeds growing in pairs, all joined in a bizarre manner. The lone sun above struck a solitary figure in this paradise of emotion. Joa Fan chuckled. Then it dawned on him to look across the sky and notice the moon. Just like emotion's sovereign, to bring even the sun and moon together. Joa Fan walked on, with nothing stopping him. Except for some odd sights, the sovereign's seat of enlightenment had no defenses. It was the complete opposite from the dark and eerie Nether Sea. This forest only knew tranquility and peace. The heavenly sovereign is almighty. So why doesn't he come here, insisting that I go instead? Peculiar. Joa Fan was trying to unravel the 10 sovereigns game and his role in it. It didn't get him anywhere, so he gave up, just focusing on walking until he reached a cave. It had Cave of Emotion written above it. Greetings, Sovereign. Joa Fan gave a deep bow in respect. There was no reply, only silence. Joa Fan cursed. Is he out, or was the heavenly sovereign's aim off? He was about to ask again. You're finally here. A faint woman's voice came from within. Yeah. Joa Fan nodded, proving the heavenly sovereign's words. His destiny was to be the sovereign's pawn. All of them were waiting for him. Who let you in? The voice asked. Joa Fan was frank. Sovereign, it was heavenly sovereign who brought me to your seat of enlightenment. After all this time, it'd be strange for heavenly sovereign not to notice. 9 Serenities was right. The final winner is still up to fate. Joa Fan spoke baffled. Sovereign, I could just go if you want. No, I've waited for you for too long. There's no way you're leaving. After her stern words, a prismatic light flew out of the cave. It entered Joa Fan's body and stayed there. Joa Fan patted himself, making an odd face. Is that it? Yes, You're now free to go. Shouldn't it be like Nether Sovereign's group? Joafan scratched his head at how absurdly easy getting something so important was. Don't you need to test me? Or guide me? It's kind of casual. It's yours now, and you're dissatisfied? Beat it. Ugh, fine. Joafan blinked at the temper and left with a bow. Take care, Sovereign. He went for a few minutes before returning to the portal. He gave one last look back before stepping through. The minute he did, the paradise faded away. The pairs of insects and birds were gone. The sun and moon were no more. Only a dark wind blew below the heavy clouds. Over the endless bones roamed by mangy dogs and ravens as they searched for scraps. The paradise had become hell. The voice echoed from the cave. If heaven has love, heaven is also old. Love is the deadliest poison in the world. The heavenly sovereign ran amok through the world, yet fell for my bewitching and never again set foot here. Having sent him to take my path, this means he's close to removing it. We are running out of time. Bali Yuyu, are you ready? A lady stood ice cold in the cave. She nodded. A pink glow filled the cave. We're going to act soon, so let me remind you. My soul trace relied on my path to survive for so long. The day I send it away is the day I will be gone from this world. But I'll be able to control it once more through you. However, if you can't withstand a path's might, then you will disintegrate. Will you still accept it? Don't you want to stop the heavenly sovereign? Why say this now? Bali Yu looked at the cave with a cold gaze. The voice came once more. There's no grudge between us and the heavenly sovereign. Blocking him is because of our diverging paths. The mortal world's emotions have no play in this. I'm happy that you'd sacrifice yourself for me. But as the emotion's sovereign, I need to confirm your decision. For emotion is hard as stone. Mastering emotion means you need to feel them at their most intense. The Nether Sovereign sent you here believing you have the capability. I know that your emotions are one-sided. Whether they can reach or not, I know. I won't let him die before me. Bali Yu was determined, showing a faint smile. With a boom, the cave shone bright, then entered Bali Yu. Bali Yu shuddered from pain, but soon her eyes opened to reveal a dreadful gaze. Rumble, the mountain crumbled, and all in 1,000 miles turned to dust. Bali Yu flew away, gone in a blink. 100 miles from Mirror Moon Cottage, as sacred stones entered the earth, a strange array took form. Schwanger took a deep breath and made a sign. Li Jingtian's group was grave. Miss Schwanger, can we actually save Steward Zhuo with this array? Even Steward Zhuo has no confidence in defeating Shui Jing with his mastery of arrays. How can you? It's not to fight Shui Jing, but to guide him. Schwanger looked pained. This is my ancestors' mission to our clan, to give Big Brother Zhuo a way out. A prismatic light shone, and Schwanger released a frightening aura that left everyone gasping. The Steward, Demonic Emperor. Chapter 1293, First Ending, Advancement. The Steward, Demonic Emperor, Swordheart walked towards the towering cliff, smiling at the setting sun and the cautious Sword Child. Swordheart spoke to himself. He'll soon get his wish, and this world will be at peace. Sword Child just stared. What's your name? Swordheart asked. Sword Child, did your master name you? No, he's my father. Sword Child's eyes were hard. Swordheart shook his head. Just like humanity, to treat his sword as a son. How does your master see you? Isn't it obvious? His heart. Swordheart sighed. A sword points where your heart is. I am his sword, moving at his heart's intent. We are one, he and I. Does he see you as a brother then? Not a brother, for they aren't of one mind, while we are. Swordheart smiled. What he wants to do, I want as well. Not like your master's fancy speech, calling you his son. Isn't parenthood a form of slavery? You have to obey, and you have to listen. Being humane is so fake, so short-sighted. Humph, Sword Child mocked. Your master made you like him, but in the end you're just a copy. You're both working to improve, at best, while nothing more than a replica at worst. My father treats us like sons, but he never forces us to follow him. The same with the Luo clan head, the same with Qilin. I am but a sword. So who is the master and who is the servant? Swordheart looked at the sky. The heavenly Daos have no emotions in eternal solitude, unmarred by human complexions. That's why the 10 ancient sovereigns were, in the end, one heaven and 9 people. The 9 shared their paths, while the heavenly Daos is only one. The same goes for us. It's not that he made a copy of himself. It's that the heavenly Daos resembles themselves. I'm his sword, and he shows me where the heavenly Daos are so we can create a pure world. What's that got to do with my dad? He never bothered you. Of course it's related. He's crucial. Be it for the heavenly Daos or humanity, the world's direction rests on him. Everything is in the hands of one man. Swordheart smiled. If all goes well, tonight we'll get to see the world's direction change. Ha! Swordchild shuddered, unease creeping in. Whoosh, 2 figures bowed before Swordheart. Sir, it's done. They were 2 of the 8 freaks. Swordheart waved them away and said to Swordchild, Do you know what they are? Once the strongest in the mortal domain, men that sought the pinnacle. But the more they do, the more frustrated they feel when they reach a wall they cannot cross. Having never failed before, they become restless. It was then that I stepped in and promised to fulfill their wishes, so they bowed their heads. And once someone does, he can never raise it again. Humans are weak. These 8 are all cultivators from the mortal domain that learn from the sacred weapons. Yes, the tougher the environment, the stronger the people. After the ancient period, the sacred domain no longer had anyone impressive. Only the mortal domain would bring about someone adequate every 1,000,000 years or so. Swordheart nodded. Then he showed utter disdain. And the result? They're stuck as half-sovereigns. Their immense pride turned into cowardice from crushing doubt in their abilities as they begin seeking other ways, ultimately sealing their hope to ever reach sovereignty. That's why they can never be sovereigns. If there's already a sovereign alive for that path, then that seat is occupied, Swordchild shouted. Swordheart shook his head. Wrong. The 10 paths to heaven hint at being only 10, but that doesn't mean they can't change. It may be hard, but if one found an alternative, another road, they too could become sovereign in the sword. Swordchild, there was once Patriarch Blood Demon who lived a long time ago. He had the bravery to do it, coming the closest to realizing it. Later on, people heard his attempt and always believed that the 10 paths are undoubtedly occupied, losing their courage. Will you brave it, little one? Swordchild's eyes grew with thirst for battle. Ha ha ha. You may never get the chance if your master fails. Swordheart laughed and patted the little head. Come, let's see your master's last act, and maybe for the last time. Swordheart left, and Swordchild followed. The 2 arrived at the Heavenly Sovereign's courtyard to find him in his chair and looking at the chessboard with intense gaze. Chu Ching Chung paced around, looking at the portal with worry now and then. Swordheart and Swordchild landed. Swordheart bowed. It's ready. Marvelous. The Heavenly Sovereign gave Swordchild a look, while Chu Ching Chung gasped. What are you doing here? It's too dangerous? Where's father? Swordchild asked. Chu Ching Chung looked at the portal and sighed. He went to find the emotion sovereign. It feels like the 2 sovereigns are mortal enemies. As Zhua Fan represents the Heavenly Sovereign, maybe. Chu Ching Chung shook her head. Swordchild looked worried as well. Zhua Fan casually stepped out of the portal, and the 2 welcomed him with smiles. The Heavenly Sovereign gave him a look and mocked. Just like I said, that woman gave it to you. I have it. So what do you want from me now? Zhua Fan sighed. The Heavenly Sovereign shrugged, popping another portal open, leading to the sacred mountains, where their disciples and the 6 mountain lords were. Only they were all unconscious. Zhua Fan gave the Heavenly Sovereign a quizzical look. The Heavenly Sovereign spoke. As 9 Serenity's inheritor, you trained in the demon transformation art to the early saint stage. You're a ways away from reaching the peak. As for your heart and mind, the many sovereign inheritances you have proved its broadness. To reach the sovereign stage, all that is needed is build up. What? Zhua Fan gasped. You want me to suck them dry? Of course. Why else would I stop the slaughtering? As Sacred Mountain's disciples practice the most upright methods and have a solid foundation. Using them will lead to best results. Just what's your game? Making me a sovereign? Think of it as me helping you out. Heavenly Sovereign snickered. Not just me, but other sovereigns wish for it as well. There'd be no point dumping so many paths on you otherwise. But your goals differ. Why do you care? Did you forget your place, pawn? You have no power here. The Heavenly Sovereign mocked as he glanced at Chu Qingsheng and Sword Child. I'd have drowned you in materials by now. But for the saying, haste makes waste, do you think I wanted to wait for so long? Are you doing it or not? Zhuofan's face shook, and he looked around with a sigh. He made a sign, and black energy leaked out of him. In a blink, a sea of black drowned the crowd. They didn't even twitch as they disintegrated. The black energy returned to Zhuofan and filled him with endless strength. The Heavenly Sovereign smirked. You're holding back because you're afraid that the demon transformation art will eat you alive like your disciple and everyone. Don't worry. The backlash happens only with a weak body, unable to handle all those energies, and with a weak mind that succumbs to the victim's regrets. You've passed them with flying colors. Now cultivate it already. Screw you. Zhuo Fan shook, unleashing a violent wave of black energy that turned all the people to dust in a blink. Chu Qingsheng shirked back in fear, with the Heavenly Sovereign nodding. Let's take this brief moment to comprehend Heavenly Daos like old times. Brother, the argument before the Great War. The Heavenly Sovereign's eyes shone. The steward, demonic emperor. Chapter 1294, First Ending. Seizing the steward demonic emperor, Zhuofan was surrounded by black energy, but he was still able to listen. When the universe was in its primordial state, the heavens and the earth were pure and clear. All things were honest, and there was a flourishing vitality. The prevalent, upright energy made it the clearest time in the entire cosmos. The Heavenly Sovereign stood and paced. With the coming of humanity, the world's vitality got twisted. With humanity having demons in their hearts, the world's righteousness was challenged by the demonic path, confusing it further. Yes, the demonic path was never part of the world. It came from people. In other words, the heart is the root of all evil. Doesn't that mean to cleanse the world, one has to purge the source? Zhuofan spoke from his cultivation. Isn't this funny, talking about eradicating the demonic path when I'm part of it? It's because you reached its peak that you understand the wretchedness of a human heart. I'm asking you in all honesty. The Heavenly Sovereign was filled with bloodthirst. The vile humans have only worked to doom their fate with the countless crimes. They should all die, right? Zhuofan took a deep breath. Yes, humans are vile, but in your journey as a demonic cultivator for so many years, you've been seeking any little reason why humanity shouldn't be purged. And now you became a true demon from a nobody. You see the good and bad in their hearts and know that humanity must die. Then you should be supporting me this time, right? When have I gone against you? Can I even do that? This is absurd. Zhuofan was confused. Chu Qingsheng scrounged up her courage to dispute. Humanity is evil, but also good and honorable. You can't condemn it just because there's some bad in them. You may be a sovereign, but aren't you human first and foremost? Yeah, I was once a human, but ever since I attained my void path to become the Heavenly Sovereign, I no longer saw myself as such. I'm cultivating the Heavenly Daos, emptiness. All my human characteristics are now void. I'm the Heavenly Daos envoy, enacting judgment in its stead to remove any filth poisoning it. It's my duty. The Heavenly Sovereign sneered. It's because I was once human that I understand how deep this poison runs. Reap the world once so that it may be pure again. As for that honor and good you spout about, Zhuofan shuddered and his strength exploded before subsiding. The Heavenly Sovereign patted his shoulder. Well done. Demon transformation art is truly incredible as the fastest cultivation method in the world. You're already at mid-saint stage. There's just something I can't fathom. Why is your cultivation regressing to the 5th layer of foundation establishment stage? It's really baffling. This is the true self art. having learned it from an elder in the mortal domain. At the peak of your path, you return to your origins. Isn't this something that big players like you strive for? No, since I never heard any among us 10 speak of such a clever cultivation method. Every sovereign drew their cultivation method from their paths. Seize the moon and sun, block the stars, ruin the world. All of these are incredible. This true self-art looks odd, but so plain, made for nobodies. The heavenly sovereign shrugged. Keep going. The demon transformation art takes everything in creation. The mortal cultivation method won't affect it. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan closed his eyes, ignoring his mocking. Humph smiled and said, right. Miss Chu said something about honor and good. Humph, hypocrite. That honor and good you speak of are nothing but covers to hide twisted and vile hearts. It has no relation to true righteousness. Humans only care about themselves, their wants, even beguiling others to stop them from targeting them. So they need a good excuse to take the main role on the stage. What purging evil and vanquishing demons? They're nothing but excuses to invade and remove all their threats. Who'd act otherwise? You're sort of a righteous cultivator. Think of all the times when righteousness was invoked. Wasn't it to steal or cheat or kill some threat? Was there any time they fought for another? Chu Qingcheng was shaken up, and the heavenly sovereign let her be, turning instead to Zhuo Fan. You know this better than most, Zhuo Fan. In dealing with the 8 emperors and sacred mountains, you used the moral high ground, didn't you? It was the only way to avoid others from surrounding you when you attacked, giving them a common cause. It's why I said you've done right by going to the mortal domain, turning into a full-fledged demon by understanding the other's demons and using them. However, I have to admit that some, the very rare kind, truly are kind like a flower. Zhuo Fan shuddered and his power surged once more. He was at late saint stage in power, and his cultivation regressed to the 3rd layer of foundation establishment stage. The heavenly sovereign gave him a long look. I never denied the world not having true kind people. And human minds get twisted. Once this kindness gets swallowed by the filth of the world, it gets spat out as demonic, vile, and abhorred. By seeing their evil, you understand this better than anyone. The human heart is the least reliable concept in the world. An angel can become a demon overnight, sullying the world. The kindness of humans is nothing more than the incubation period of demons. They all turn with time. Thousands of saints were now dust, with but a few still alive. Zhuo Fan's power grew to the peak saint stage. The heavenly sovereign looked to be winning, his right eye shone in 10 golden halos. Little brother, just like before, you have no way of convincing me. So just the same, lend me a hand and help me reach the supreme stage, to become the ultimate being so that I may destroy the world and rebirth it. Boom! The sky changed as a huge eye appeared above everyone. 10 golden rings shone in its center. Zhuo Fan shook and felt crushed, unable to breathe. His bones felt like they might give. Heavenly Sovereign, what are you doing? Zhuo Fan cried out. The Heavenly Sovereign smirked, taking out the sovereign paths those guys gave you. Divine Eye of the Void, 10th stage, Void Cave. Whoosh, the 10 golden rings in the sky shone brighter, and Zhuo Fan felt his strength boiling. His skin turned red and blood seeped out. His strength drifted outward, like something was being pulled from his being. Zhuo Fan heard a shriek, forcing his head to look with gritted teeth. Chu Qingcheng suffered the same, getting in pain and crying out from the torment as something was being pulled away. Heavenly Sovereign, you had me do it, so let me. Leave her alone. My word is my bond. Miss Chu will be free, but I need to take something first. Heavenly Sovereign smiled, his eyes shining golden. A prismatic glow came out of Chu Qingcheng and flew in the sky, vanishing inside the huge eye. That's, yes, the 9 serenities path you left on her. Heavenly Sovereign explained. Chu Qingcheng fell limp on the ground, pale and weak. Zhuo Fan was worried and Heavenly Sovereign mollified. Worry not. I only want the path, not to hurt her. She just needs some rest. Though after I rebirth the world, I can't promise she'd survive. A heavenly sovereign isn't the path for the owner to decide. That's for common people. I am heavenly sovereign, and my divine eye of the void 10th stage, void cave, can take anything, even a sovereign path. Heavenly sovereign chuckled at his confusion. Of course, if she had a sovereign strength, it might have been harder. But this is all she amounts to. Next up is you, my little brother. The steward demonic emperor. Chapter 1295. First ending. Bleak outlook. The steward demonic emperor with a crazed smile. The heavenly sovereign's 10 golden halos in his eyes shined brightly. Zhuo Fan felt the pain of having something pulled out of him. He cried out as a prismatic glow flew out, vanishing in the huge eye. Tyrant Emperor path, check. The heavenly sovereign smirked triumphantly as Zhuo Fan roared in constant agony as prismatic glows flew out of him. Chu Qingcheng panted and witnessed his torture with worry. She felt the scene familiar, making his shouting far more painful than what she went through. Chu Qingcheng sobbed and crawled at a painfully slow pace, far too weak. Zhuo Fan, Sword Child, was frantic, wanting to help, but divine eye of the void's power was too great, pressing him down into the ground. Father, PFF, the prismatic glows entered the huge eye, and Zhuo Fan bled from every inch of skin. As the last glow left him, Zhuo Fan had no strength to even shout. The final path, the emotion sovereigns. Ha ha ha, the heavenly sovereign laughed. I'm the winner in the end. The heavenly Daos will be rid of humanity and become pure. Sword Child roared. You got what you wanted. Now let my father go. So young, and yet to already have awareness. You're quite filial for a demonic cultivator like Zhuo Fan. Heavenly Sovereign mocked. Too bad you're wrong in assuming that I got everything. He can't go yet. What more do you want? The peak of the human path. Zhuo Fan's demon transformation art trained to the peak. The golden rings in his eyes shined even brighter. Zhuo Fan felt like he was flayed alive by thousands of knives and pokers. His eyes bulged as blood flowed out of him. He howled at the top of his lungs as the black energy seeped out of him and vanished in the huge eye in the sky. Zhuo Fan's roars didn't stop. Following his strength being robbed, his very soul came out as well, stripped of everything. Zhuo Fan quieted, looking near dead. Sword Child roared in anger. You took everything from him and still want more? His soul will be destroyed and die. It's the path he chose. He lost, and like our agreement, he will now help with my path. The heavenly sovereign smiled at the frail soul. Little brother, I won in the end, and you lost. Without you, I couldn't have won. You're my stepping stone, and I won't forget you, destroying you for good. Farewell, father. Zhuo Fan. Sword Child and Chu Qingcheng shouted, but Zhuo Fan was silent. He was still in haze. What the hell is going on? Who did I mess with to have this sovereign toy with me? I'm dying and still don't know why. No one is more wrong than me in the world. Bam. A sudden shudder passes through the world and sky, causing the huge eye to quake and the golden rings to dim. Zhuo Fan's frail soul relaxed, feeling strength again, enough to exist. Sword Child finally stood up and looked at the sky. The pressure's gone? Who's there? The heavenly sovereign's right eye shone in 12 golden halos, while his left flickered with purple lightning, glaring at the empty sky. Sword Heart was grave. Who can barge into the heavenly sovereign's world? Whoosh, a familiar figure appeared before them, her cold eyes glaring at the heavenly sovereign. Yu, Miss Yu, Zhuo Fan cried. Chu Qingcheng rejoiced at newfound hope. But why was she so strong? How did she just enter the heavenly sovereign's domain? Bali Yu looked at the weak soul. I'm not Bali Yu, I'm the emotion sovereign. I'm using Bali Yu's body to save them. Save them? You dare talk big using a trace of your soul to take over a mortal body? You're nowhere near strong enough. The heavenly sovereign mocked. This is my world and not yours. What can you possibly do? You don't even have your path. You're only a half-sovereign at best. The emotion sovereign smirked and looked at the huge eye, who said I don't. There it is. You call the path I stole with my void path still yours. All the more reason why you'll lose it. The emotion sovereign gave a taunting look. Heavenly sovereign, remember your fall? Heaven has emotion and will pierce everything. You fell for my bewitching and spent all the following ages in this abode without stepping a foot outside. You were afraid of the world's energy infecting yours and ruining the heartless heavenly Daos you hold dear. The heavenly sovereign raged. That was a cheap blow you did when I was weakened from fighting the others. If not for my unworthy little brother's help from the shadows, you'd never have succeeded. Moreover, I reduced you to a mere trace, only hanging on with the help of your path. Once my little brother is back, you'll have nothing to be smug about. It's no boasting, but a fact. My emotion path is the bane of your heartless heavenly Daos. Once a void path has emotion, it can no longer be empty. You worked hard in removing all human emotions to cultivate the void path, and when emotion seeps back in, demise is nigh. This time I have the demon transformation art to remove your emotion and the bewitching you placed on me. Emotion sovereign, you lost. We'll see. The crux is if you can remove them. The heavenly sovereign's face grew dark. The emotion sovereign smirked as she made a sign. A pink glow spread throughout the sky. The huge eye shuddered and its aura grew weaker. Heavenly sovereign, you have taken my path, but have yet to absorb it. I can still control it. I will have emotion reach its peak and infect your void path and ruin your heartless heavenly Daos cultivation. Think again, the heavenly sovereign shouted, making a sign to have the huge eye shone brighter. My void path is the righteous way of the world. It can't be infected. You're just a trace relying on a puny human to steal a sovereign path. How long do you think you can hold on for? In a minute, you'll die along with that trace. Dot. Juefan looked in shock at Baliyu. Is she the emotion sovereign's vessel, or more than enough? The emotion sovereign turned to Juefan. I'll stall him for a minute. Run. Run. He was too weak to even move. The heavenly sovereign sneered. Your minute will be wasted. Whoosh, a shadow flashed as Sword Child reached Juefan to hold his soul. No, it won't. Thank you, Senior. I and Dad won't forget you. Though we can never repay you. Whoosh, Sword Heart blocked Sword Child. Sword Child looked grave. He had no confidence he could win against this incredible enemy. They were going to fail. The enemy had two experts. Even with the Sovereign being stalled, they couldn't do anything about the second. The outlook was bleak, the steward demonic emperor. Chapter 1296, First Ending. Star Path. The steward demonic emperor, Swordheart. Why do you work for him? You know he's heartless, so what do you gain from it? The emotion sovereign asked. That's why I was feeling threatened. He can't be beaten because he's the pinnacle of the sword path. It was like fighting your own father, impossible to fight. Sword Child predicted this, but the news still came as a shock. Now everything is ruined. Curses, emotion sovereign, we're only sovereigns, not human. I am the heavenly sovereign sword, and he is Juefan's creation. We can't betray our masters. You don't betray, but did he ever trust you? What about your path? Why are you a half-sovereign? Who took your crown? The emotion sovereign saw him silent and sneered. Heavenly sovereign was scared you'd turn, so he took it to destroy you the moment you have a change of heart. Yet you still help him? Weren't you on good terms with CAO? Why choose heavenly sovereign in the end? Because heavenly sovereign is right. People's hearts change, and I'd become tainted. I might proclaim my loyalty, but I can't even guarantee that I won't change. It was the right thing to give heavenly sovereign my path. That's what I believe. Coward. Emotion sovereign spat. The heavenly sovereign sneered. Swordheart has been with me for so long, my only friend. We both believe in the heavenly Daos. The humans aren't reliable with their unpredicted nature. It doesn't mean anything even if I have his path. It's better for him to follow the Tao than let his heart decide. Once the heart changes, it will cause a great disaster. This is why humanity must be purged for the heavenly Daos to live on. Humph, you haven't won yet. What? The heavenly sovereign smirked, but then another boom echoed in the sky. Stars fell, breaking this domain's limit and striking Sword Heart. Sword Heart felt the immense pressure and took out his sword and slashed at the sky to crush the incoming attacks. But the star's power made his arm numb. Sovereign Yun's starfall. Sword Heart gasped, with the heavenly sovereign muttering, "Impossible." Sovereign Yun died ages ago. Even if there's a trace left, he still can't unleash such a strong sovereign power. Is it? The emotion sovereign smiled and made a sign. Heavenly sovereign, you'll regret it now in not letting Sword Heart keep his sovereign path. He can't contend with Sovereign Yun's star power. With his path in the eye above, he can't block the Sovereign Yun's path as a mere half-sovereign. The two turned to Sword Heart to see him pushed back. For every one of the 10 sovereign paths, one needs a certain mindset to use it. Taking over somebody won't work. The emotion path needs the pinnacle of emotion, true and pure emotion. That's the only way for you to last this minute and control the emotion path like back then. The Heavenly Sovereign spoke, so that means the body you're using has deep emotion for Zhuo Fan, willing to die for him. The emotion Sovereign nodded. The Heavenly Sovereign then turned to the stars. This is Sovereign Yun's path. His mindset is for the people of the world. It must be a direct descendant to be in tune with his Tao heart. But only if they would sacrifice themselves for Zhuo Fan could they unleash so much of its power at Yin Sovereign's level. But why does this kid have so many willing to die for him? Heavenly Sovereign, this is the human path's strength. You can never know its might, you who control the heavenly Taos. Also, the emotion Sovereign glanced at Zhuo Fan. You know very well your little brother's grace. He's nothing like you, ha ha ha. That's why he diverged on his journey to heavenly Taos, pulled towards your human paths. Heavenly Sovereign sneered. Just a few seconds. You don't have the time to escape my world. You've lost. The Heavenly Sovereign's eyes shone in bright gold and made a sign. The emotion Sovereign shook and staggered back, looking pale and red as blood seeped out, just like it happened to Zhuo Fan. The emotion Sovereign was on the brink. Kid, don't just stand there. Leave with Zhuo Fan. Yes. Sword Child blinked awake from the impressive starfall and rushed away with Zhuo Fan, while Sword Heart was stuck dealing with the stars. The Heavenly Sovereign didn't mind, flaring his power once more and striking the emotion Sovereign's chest, causing her to cough blood. Ha ha ha, it's over and you lost. I'll be taking my pawn back. It's the end of humanity's sovereigns. The emotion Sovereign looked at the huge eye in worry. Whoosh, a blinding white light shone out of nowhere, breaking through the barriers of this world and landing on the courtyard. The Heavenly Sovereign was startled, with the emotion Sovereign roaring at Sword Child. Kid, get Zhuo Fan's soul inside the light. Hurry! Sword Child threw Zhuo Fan's soul inside. Zhuo Fan's soul took human form in the light. Chu Qingqing's eyes glimmered with hope, reaching out. Zhuo Fan did the same, but as they were about to touch, he was turning into motes of light. Chu Qingqing was worried, thinking something happened to him. The emotion Sovereign consoled. Don't worry, this is Sovereign Yun's star path. The soul inside will turn into a star and be sent elsewhere. Not even a sovereign can hope to chase after it. The emotion Sovereign looked at Heavenly Sovereign's dark face. So you still want to gamble? Not gamble, but survive, along with the rest of the people. Fine, I'll let you take that faint hope away. But you will lose in the end. I have what I need. A wounded soul won't make a difference. Oh, we'll just have to wait and see, ha ha. The emotion Sovereign smiled as she collapsed, turning into fading motes of red light. Zhuo Fan gasped. Senior, is this your wish, or you use? This girl isn't a fool to pay so much for another's man. I bewitched her to control her body. It's despicable, but it's all for the greater good. Farewell, Zhuo Fan. Bali Yuyu's dead expression vanished as well, gone into red motes. Zhuo Fan turned into starlight and flew through the curtain of white light. The Heavenly Sovereign, Sword Heart, Sword Child, and Chu Qingqing were left alone. The four looked conflicted at the two's disappearance. Whoosh, Sword Child held Chu Qingqing and flew away. using this chance to break out of the Heavenly Sovereign's world through the gap. Swordheart sighed. Should I stop them? No, I said I'll let them go, and I will. I'm a man of my word. The Heavenly Sovereign shook his head. Did the Emotion Sovereign's last trace die with the girl's last words? Yeah, but she didn't leave any good parting words, sounding just like the Emotion Sovereign. Nothing good comes from humanity. A pity for the ignorant. The Heavenly Sovereign sighed. This only proves that the Heavenly Daos have to destroy humanity and their path. Swordheart, start the last step. Once I remove the bewitching, we will go to Heavenly Rebirth Lake and break the last barrier to bring back the Daos. We'll succeed in recreating the world. Swordheart nodded. Understood. The Steward Demonic Emperor that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.